Well, hello and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing #First Championship. I'm Sarah Hawkins, also known as Sarah Hawkey, and I'll be your host this evening and one of your co-commentators for this GT7 based championship. Tonight we gear up for the penultimate round of the championship. It's my pleasure to announce I am joined again by motorsport enthusiast, racer and co-commentator Kirk.
Before, what's up? Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. I'm sure we'll see a lot of action tonight, and I'm sure Spa will live up to the expectations we all have tonight for what I'm sure to be a very exciting round.
Yeah, hopefully it's as excited as we were last week around Dragon Trail, but we have got a little bit of unpredictability about today. We've got some weather. Eventually, we've got some weather, but I'm just gonna give a quick series rundown for anybody that's new to the championship. So we are back better than ever for season 2 of the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. We have an 8-event championship spanning over 16 race sessions. 8 weeks in total, lots of different car manufacturers on the grid, 28 drivers and some great tracks on the calendar. We have 3 official time sessions with a reverse grid sprint race up first, followed by qualifying, and then we'll be treated to an hour-long race around the famous track of Spa. Okay, Kirk, could you give me a quick overview of the event session format and point scale, please?
Absolutely, Sarah. It'll be my pleasure. So, starting tonight at roughly about 8:30 British Standard Time, um, we'll have our 15-minute reverse championship order sprint race. The sprint race is a rolling start to help avoid any excess drama into turn one. Um, we do have 5 times tyre wear in the sprint race, so usually we can see it getting a bit tight towards the end of the race on the soft tyre. And the medium tyre is usually the preferred tyre to start the sprint race on. Although slow at the start, it soon comes into its own. After the sprint race, at about 10 to 9, we'll start our 10-minute qualifying session, which the tyre you qualify on must be used. Well, you must use the compactor tyre you put your fastest lap on in qualifying. Is the tyre you start on in the feature race, barring any weather interference. We consider a wet track for both qualifying and the feature race to be over 1/3 of the moisture bar. Once it's gone over that third moisture bar, it is then declared a wet session, and then all the tyre rules go out of the window for the feature race, which is how I believe it is. Then we'll go on to the feature race, which is a 60-minute timed race tonight. Mixing it up a little bit tonight. It is grid start. It's a grid start, so especially if we see a wet start tonight, Sarah, we could certainly see the turbocharged cars maybe struggling a bit more than the naturally aspirated ones off the start line. Um, we do we do have a tyre rule in place where you have to use at least 2 different compounds of tyres in a dry race, but I've been told that it will not be a dry race tonight. So we shouldn't use the tyre rule won't be in effect. Again, once the moisture bar on the track has gone over a third full, that tyre rule goes out the window. Um, Other than that, if we go into the points, we have a lot of points available tonight in both races, feature and sprint and feature race, as well as bonus points for fastest laps, and the top 3 in qualifying do also get bonus points as well. In the sprint race, we can see we get 20 points for first and 2 for 14th, showing that no matter where you finish, there is always points to grab. And sometimes we might see drivers who maybe pick a little bit of damage up early on in the race, decide to pit and repair the damage to be able to get the bonus point for the fastest lap. And then again in the feature race, you get 40 points for first and then 4 points for 14th, showing that no matter where you are again, there is always points up for grabs. And especially what we've seen in quite a few times this season, that those 2 points for the feature race is often hotly contested, Sarah.
It is, yeah. Especially as we're now at the penultimate stage of the championship, the especially the qualifying and the bonus points for fastest lap really do help, secure your position in the championship standings. And talking about last week as well, we had a surprise winner in the sprint race of Hartman, who is back racing again today. So just goes to show, you pick up a first place or you pick up some decent points. They all helps in the championship. We'll have a proper look at the championship standings a little bit later on, and you can see where everyone is going into the penultimate round. But yeah, I believe we're gearing up for the sprint race. But as Kirk has just mentioned, in the driver briefing, there was, I believe, 10 scenarios that could have played out tonight, and all chose at random on a roulette. So Lobby 1 has got scenario 5, which has got a bit of dry, bit of wet weather. But Lobby 2, which will be posted on YouTube, Nighthawk Racing YouTube, that has a full wet race. So we'll see, wet conditions on both lobbies, but Lobby 1, it looks to start out dry first and then get a little bit wet towards the end, hopefully. But yeah, weather, the first time we've seen weather, and hopefully it will give the drivers a little bit more of a challenge. But before we get into the sprint race, we'll just have a little recap of our podium last week. So like I just said, Hartman coming in first place, a surprise first place, but we were all rooting for him, and he did a remarkable job around the Dragon Trail Seaside layout. We then had LB Racing coming home in second, and the Dark Lord, aka Louis, coming home in third. But yeah, had a pretty good sprint race last week. Like I say, some surprising people on the podium. What did you think about that, Kirk?
Yeah, I think especially last week we saw the sprint race had everything, lots of overtakes. Obviously that fantastic overtake from Hartman on LB Lewis to take the lead away from him. We also saw our fair share of people crashing. Obviously, I know early on in the sprint race, Squizzy clipped the wall, exiting the death chicane at Dragon Trail, and picked up some damage early on, and pitting to obviously repair that damage early on in the sprint race, and then managing to recover to an impressive P5. So, do you think we've seen anything like that today, Sarah? Anyone picking up damage? I know Spa's pit lane is a lot longer than Dragon Trail, but do you think, say, if you pick damage early up on in the sprint race, do you think it'll be better to pit and repair it, or just continue as you are?
Oh, tough question. We always go back to that question. Is it worth, carrying on despite the damage to hold the track position, or is it better, come in pit, fix that damage? You might lose a bit of time, but you'll gain that speed straight away. And I think, especially with the weather conditions that we may have, it's who can not crash and get damage, but who can kind of deal with the damage as best as they can. Because I've always gone, I always use my split in real life as an example. It's, do I buy a new one in the thing that I could break it the next day? And it's the same with these guys on track. It's, do I pit for damage? But if it's wet, as soon as I come out, I could crash into a barrier again. So it's basically trying to stay away from those barriers as best as they can. But we are lining up for the sprint race, a first lap. So Kirk, if you want to take it away for me.
Absolutely. So leading us off tonight in P1 is Hassler, being promoted from being a graduate from Split 2, going graduating Split 1 tonight. Followed by Ripping the Tearing, LB Lewis, who we saw drive a very good sprint race last week, finishing P2, I believe. Already losing a place to Pedro off the start. Obviously not the greatest start, and possibly under pressure from Hartman as well. So LB Lewis is very firm on closing that door early on, as we see Hartman possibly running slightly wide there, coming over ready on. Then in the back, I'm not sure what happened towards the back. There is quite a big gap formed, with Coach currently defending from McManley heading into Lacombe, and Midnight, followed by Louis. Having a little look up the inside there, Louis into the comp. Swizzy P10, Callum in 11th, as we see at the front of the pack, LB Lewis getting in front of Pedro. Interestingly enough, Sarah, on this first lap, 2 of our top 5 had penalties as Haslett, should I say, has spun on the exit, looping it round. Did he pick up damage from that, Sarah?
I can have a little look see. Um, Unfortunately, I can just see him in the barriers at the moment, and it looks like he picks up front and rear damage, but currently still sat on the grass, so I'm not sure. It might be a possible retirement there, or a possible disconnect. We've all had our fair share of disconnects, especially with equipment and electronics. I know I've had my fair share, so hopefully he can get going again. But yeah, picks up a little bit of damage. But yeah, like you said, there was quite a big gap from the top half and the bottom half. I'm not sure what happened there, but they all seem to be bunching up now. But yeah, a bit unusual for the first lap, but Spa usually is the track where some weird stuff happen.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it could possibly be that chicane starting behind that chicane.
Oh,
Could really
Midnight in the background. I'm sorry, Midnight. We're going to have to show that again. I know you don't like me showing your spin, but I'm not quite sure what happened there. We saw it in the background. Not sure if it was a possible coming together. Oh, just gets a little bit wide onto the AstroTurf and does a few 360s. Does it in style. But yeah, I'm sorry, Midnight, for showing that again. But going back to a quote that McManley says, he wished that he could, dig up that AstroTurf and replace it with something else.
Oh, it's ripping the tearing. He's hit the wall at the top of Radion, heading straight into the wall on the left, picking up some severe damage on that front left. It looks like he's done the same again, coming over the top of Radion, getting onto that AstroTurf and spearing left into the wall. That is very much sent his sprint race, should I say, sent his feature race into shattered his dreams of possibly winning tonight, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously it just takes that one small mistake to ruin a race, and we all know how difficult it is to control the car. As soon as you get a wheel, even one wheel on that AstroTurf, it's so unpredictable, and especially around here because you're trying to put the power down as soon as you can. And if you put the power down while on the AstroTurf, the car just wants to send you the complete wrong way. So a few drivers getting caught out by that. I know racing last season, in season 1, I was racing around here and got on a little bit of AstroTurf. And I think it was caught on on the commentary side. But yeah, it's so hard to collect the car when it's spinning. So I wouldn't be surprised if it catches a few more drivers out tonight as well.
I just want to say, LB Lewis is driving very well at the moment, currently leading the way from Pedro and McManley. Again, also, I want to say, impressive start from the Dark Lord, aka Louis, up into P4. Coach is still holding on remarkably well in P5, followed by Swizzy and Callum. And then the possibly again disappointing start from Hartman. Obviously, that's 2 laps and 2 half-second penalties he's picked up now, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously going back to what we say, a lot of drivers using the sprint race as their kind of first point of call for a little bit of practice to see how the drivers around them are reacting to the course and learning the course alongside them. So yeah, unfortunately, I think the sprint race is usually where we see kind of a lot of people exploring the track limits, sometimes getting a penalty, sometimes not. But it's all about using the sprint race. See where the track limits are, see where you pick up penalties, so that in the feature race you're not picking up those penalties and it's not costing you too much time over that longer duration.
Sorry, as we see, to interrupt, Sarah.
Yeah, go for it.
LB Lewis is defending from Pedro. Pedro looks to try and go around the outside. A little bit of a squeeze there from Pedro, so on the entry to the comms. Lewis returned the favour into the second part of the comm and forcing Pedro right out wide there as we're going 3 wide behind. Pedro right now being the major loser from that, dropping down to P5 from challenging for first place. When Manley takes advantage to move up into P2 with Dark Lord in P3. And the top 7 cars are separated by less than 2 seconds, Sarah. This is anybody's race to win, as we see Manley getting a bit out of shape there on the entry to Blanchimont, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think the big winner out of that was Swizzy. I was on board with Swizzy, overtaking Coach in P6 and P5, and he shot up to P3. So a big winner out of all of that, and obviously, unfortunately, Pedro losing quite a few positions. But it just goes to show how close everyone is. And, if you challenge for one move and it doesn't pay off, then unfortunately, the people behind you are ready to kind of to pounce and get up and higher to that podium. But we've got LB Lewis now under threat from the Dark Lord. Could we see the Dark Lord getting his first win? Although right behind him, breathing down his neck, is our last season's champion in Swizzy. So it's gonna be a tall loss as we see LB going wide into that bus stop, all coming across the track and loses quite a few positions.
Quite a spectacular rejoin there from LB Lewis, dropping from first down to P7. But that's probably not what the Dark Lord wants. He probably wanted to get past Lewis and let Lewis hold up Swizzy, because now Louis is going to have to defend from the likes of both Swizzy and McManley in a car that we've known has struggled with tyre wear all season long, Sarah.
Yeah, and obviously we know that Lexus as well, the Swizzy's driving, it's a difficult car to handle with the tyre wear and the fuel as well. So I'm sure Swizzy will be looking to overtake as soon as he can, as he looks like they're going side by side. I mean, there's I've got to say, perfect racing between these two here so far. But yeah, both managing their tyres, managing their fuel, but also wanting to overtake each other. And like I say, just behind them is McManley. He'll be looking for them to make just that slight mistake that he can capitalise on and get that sprint race victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, being in P3, being less than a second from the two cars in front, you can really take advantage if Swizzy makes an over opportunistic move and comes to blow with Louis, or the Dark Lord as we call him. You can really take advantage of that right now, right there. We see Pedro in P4, obviously holding his position from the start, or possibly now dropping back a little bit from the pack in front, Sarah.
Yeah, I think that slight little incident where he did get swallowed up by quite a few drivers has lost him a little bit of time to these top three. But I mean, to get into P4 when just a moment ago, he's all the way down to P6, P7, it's definitely a good showing from Pedro, and he's definitely got the pace around here. Although Callum looks like he did lose a place briefly to Pedro, as I believe Callum was running P4. But I think we know that Callum he definitely excels in the sprint in the feature race. Sorry, so usually in the sprint race that's his time to get to grips with the circuit, get to grips with the weather conditions, etc. And in the feature race, I'm sure we'll be seeing Callum back on the podium, if not on the win. But going back to last week, Callum nearly missing out on a podium completely. I remember that battle between McManley and Callum on the last lap. It will definitely be one to include in the highlights reel. But potentially we might see that again tonight.
Possibly, Sarah. Well, it's probably not something that the Dark Lord wants, as currently that gap in the championship with 2 rounds to go is about 46 points. So I'm pretty sure Louis would want Callum to finish as far down the order as possible, so he can really try and close that gap up to him. With 5 minutes to go, Sarah, do you think the Dark Lord can defend from Swizzy and McManley? Obviously, we know how fast Swizzy is, being season one championship as well. Well, the season one champion. Do you think that's playing on the Dark Lord's mind, or do you think he's just treating this like any other race and just trying to go as fast as possible?
I think potentially, even if there's a tiny little pinch of kind of pressure, I think the Dark Lord will be feeling it, especially when you've got the likes of both Swizzy and McManley not too far behind. He'll be looking to make no mistakes and keeping that GTR on the grey stuff, as we call it, and not on the green AstroTurf. I mean, both respectively set in purple sectors, lap on lap. So, you know, they've both got equal speed. It's just about who can make that overtake work. And, you know, if Louis sits on all of the apexes and closes the door, we might see it boil down to that last lap, the last few corners, or maintaining a gap like this. But McManley seems to be quite close to these two. So obviously these three quite closely matched. And I don't know, it might be a bit too early to call who's going to win.
I'm just going to say, coming out of the bus stop, the Dark Lord did not. Well, the Dark Lord did not have a very good bus stop. That gap going from about 6 tenths down to under 3 tenths. Is the Dark Lord going to be under serious pressure heading into Lake Combs, as that gap is now under 2 tenths? Surely Swizzy not think about going up the inside, well, outside, should I say, into El Rouge, coming up and over Radion. That's a lot of curve there from Swizzy. Swizzy is basically pushing that GTR along in the straight line. Is Swizzy going to look to the outside? Swizzy is going to the outside. That gap now down to just half a tenth. Can the Dark Lord defend that inside line heading into the comms? It does. Swizzy thinks better of it, trying to go around the outside. Is looking for the alternative, possible switchback line heading through Normandy. Can he possibly? He is pushing that GTR around the corner. There's Louis defends heading into this next right-hander, this long sweeping right-hander that doesn't ever seem to have an apex. But it seems like the Dark Lord can defend for now, Sarah.
Yeah, and McManley's got front row seats to this battle at the moment. But like you say, Swizzy looks like he's trying to make that attacking move work, but the Dark Lord is placing that GTR in all the right places, both respectively. Still set in purple sectors, so it's just around here. You've got a few overtaking zones for sure, a few big straights that you can make the move done. But if they're equally paced, it's going to be a tough ask for Swizzy to overtake. But yeah, I think that bus stop of last lap did compromise Louis a little bit, but he seems to have made that gap back up to about 5 tenths, half a second. So, yeah, I mean, both respectively having an amazing race. And it seems like that top end speed of the GTR is just that little bit more compared to the Lexus, which I think Swizzy is struggling with, that raw speed in that Lexus. So, I don't know, obviously 1 minute to go. I don't know if it's going to stay in the order or if we're going to have a last lap battle. The drivers, you know, they always like to give us a last lap battle, so I'm not calling it just yet.
As we start what should be the final lap of this race for the front runners, can Swizzy possibly mount one last attack on this final lap? He gets a very good exit from the first corner, heading down towards El Rouge. Is the slipstring strong enough, and is the speed of that Lexus good enough to really be able to challenge the Dark Lord heading into Le Comps as we reach the Camel Straight? That gap is closing. Is it going to is it going to close fast enough? I don't think it is. I think the Dark Lord is going to be able to hang on for now. So now, if I'm Swizzy, I need to be trying to maximize the amount of time I find during this middle sector to really hopefully challenge heading up towards the bus stop. That will be the last realistic overtaking opportunity on this track. Really, McManley now picking up that half-second penalty. Any hope of him possibly improving his third position has gone out the window. Now it should just be focusing on trying to nail every corner to try and keep that P3 secure. Now heading down to Pouon, can Swizzy just stick on the back of that GTR? It looks like he's certainly doing all right now. That gap is down under 3 tenths of a second. He's in perfect striking range for that final run up the hill toward the bus stop. It's really going to be interesting to see what the Dark Lord can do. Is he going to choose to defend or hold the outside line for the run up the hill? Both drivers have done what they should have done this lap, kept it clean, kept it on the track, didn't pick up any silly penalties, and now as Louis has an absolutely fantastic run out those those last two right-handers to really extend that gap up to 6.5 tenths. But this is where we might see the gap close a bit more as we head round Blanchimont. I think Swizzy might be just a bit too far behind to really be able to challenge Louis into the bus stop chicane, and it looks like it is possibly a first sprint race win for the Dark Lord here in the F hashtag first championship, Sarah.
Yeah, and I can't believe how close McManley was to Swizzy at the end there as well. The gap was under 2 tenths. So, I mean, if we had one more lap, I think all three of them would have been battling for that win. But I mean, what a race from the top three, our podium drivers, kept us entertained the whole race, and hopefully, they'll do the same in the feature race. But I mean, respectively, McManley, Swizzy, and Dark Lord starting further back because obviously, like we say, the sprint race is reversed, so they've had to do quite a lot of work to get to the front of the grid. And I've got to say, that what a race from them.
Absolutely. Obviously, we saw at the front, obviously, unfortunate incidents from Ripon de Terran and Haslett on the early few laps that really cost them their 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 starting positions. Obviously, the likes of the Dark Lord, Swizzy, McManley, obviously managed to take full advantage of the issues that had arisen at the front of the pack, and was really able to take advantage, which we saw as they rang out a podium 1, 2, 3. Sarah.
Yeah, and just obviously, victory going to the Dark Lord, gaining 8 positions from where he started. So that just goes to show, the hard work that he put in during that race. And I'm looking forward to what he can do in the feature race. But before we go to qualifying, we've got a hot lap to show you, and it's from Pedro's perspective this week. So enjoy Pedro's hot lap around Spa. Well, I hope you enjoyed the hot lap from Pedro's perspective. And thank you very much, Pedro, for doing that. It's very much appreciated. And obviously, this is Spa in the dry. And I've got a slight sneak peek of the feature race and the qualifying conditions. And let me just tell you, they look completely different to what we just saw in the sprint race. So should be for exciting but chaotic feature race. But before we get into that, we're just going to talk about the drivers that we see on the grid tonight. So starting off, we have Ripin Deterin. He's back in Lobby 1, and after securing a 6th place and a 9th place finish last week, Ripin brings home some decent points. Ripin is in 14th place overall with 128 points, only 1 point of Deadline, who is in Lobby 2 tonight. Next up, we then have LB Racing, aka Lewis, and he secured himself a P2 finish in the sprint race last week at Dragon Trail Seaside, holding off the Dark Lord. Can he do the same again today around what will be a track with tricky conditions, especially in the qualifying and feature race? LB Racing is in 11th place overall with 165 points. Next up, we then have Coach. Coach had quite a difficult couple of races at Seaside last week, but he's looking to have another good performance here around Spa. We all know that Coach is super fast, and I can't wait to see what Coach and that Supra does out on track. Coach has 188 points and is in 6th place overall. Next up, we then have McManley, and as you just saw, McManley just finishing behind Swizzy, unfortunately. But shows he's got a lot of pace. But McManley finished just outside of the podium in the feature race last week after what was a phenomenal last lap battle with Callum. Definitely one for the highlight reel. The Mercedes will be strong here in the hands of Mac, as we saw especially in the sprint race. So I'm sure he'll be looking to finish on the podium yet again this week. McManley is currently in 3rd place in the championship with 244 points overall. Next up, we then have our very own Pedro, and he's back tonight after unfortunately occurring a couple of disconnects during last week's event, which I know he was very sad about. But Spa is a track that Pedro has got experience driving in different games, so he'll be looking for a good performance here as well. As always, a massive thank you to Pedro, who has provided a tutorial video and a hot lap video this week, which is both available on the Nighthawk Racing YouTube. And again, it's been very helpful and definitely worth a watch. And he did tutorial laps in the dry and in the wet. Pedro is in 9th place overall with 176 points overall. And the last driver for me to mention is Haslett. Haslett, who you may see on screen called Saber Venom, is a promotion into Lobby 1 tonight, and he'll be looking to enjoy battles with the other drivers, gaining positions, and most importantly, enjoying the race. I'm excited to see how Haslett does tonight, especially in the qualifying and in the feature, after having a little bit of a tricky sprint race. But Haslett is in 13th place with 133 points. And I'll hand you over to Kirk, who will talk through the rest of the drivers who are on the grid tonight.
Absolutely. Starting with one of our very own and one of the founders of the league, Midnight ISO. It wasn't the greatest round last week for Midnight, only finishing 8th in the sprint race, followed up by only qualifying 8th. And then the sprint race, well, the feature race, should I correct myself, didn't get off to the greatest start either. Being caught up in the incident with Hartman, obviously early on in the feature race, Hartman crashing into a wall and unfortunately collecting Midnight ISO. The race got much better as it went on. Midnight obviously dropping towards the back of the pack after picking up damage. He drove a very good race from there on, keeping good pace, keeping the tyres alive quite well, and ended up recovering to finish P6. A very good recovery drive from him last time out, and he is still climbing the standings. Currently sat only 1 point in front of Coach and 2 points in front of last season champion Swizzy. I believe Midnight is currently P5 in the championship. After Midnight, we have the Dark Lord or Louis, A very impressive round from Louis last week as he secured a double podium finish, taking P3 in the sprint race and P2 in the feature race. In the end, just really running out of tyres to take the fight to Swizzy. He drove a very good race, often running at the front of the pack, but the poor tyre GTR really letting him down. Unfortunately, well, I say that, but in the end, I think tonight Louis will want much of the same tonight. Obviously, starting off in perfection by winning the sprint race here tonight. I'm sure he will certainly be trying to win again here tonight. I can't remember quite what he said about wet conditions, but I'm sure if I know Louis, I'm sure he'll certainly be up towards the front of the pack again tonight. Louis is currently sat second in the championship, 46 points behind leader Callum and on 256 points. Speaking of Callum, it's Callum up next. Callum finally had a decent sprint race, capitalised on all the drama going on at the front of the pack to sneak through and finish P4. In the feature race, he managed to, well, he come out on top of that little battle we saw in the last few laps between him and Manley, finishing uh, finishing on the podium P3. Um, Although finishing behind Dark Lord in both races, causing his championship lead to just shrink just that slight bit, he still has a very commanding lead. As I said, by 46 points. He is currently on 295 points. And then after that, Hartman. Finally, Hartman become a race winner in Split 1, impressively winning the sprint race after overtaking LB Lewis. There really was no, there really was no looking back once he had made that overtake. In the end, he really showed off what was quite a dominant performance in the sprint race. Although he couldn't replicate that form in the feature race, obviously crashing into the wall early on and then not really doing much of that afterwards, unfortunately. Just running around towards the back of the pack, finishing last of the runners. Hartman is currently 8th in the standings on 182 points. After Hartman, we have Swizzy. An impressive drive from the season one champ. Swizzy in the sprint race saw him recover quite well after picking up damage early on in the sprint race. He pitted for a set of softs and managed to come back, finishing an impressive P5. Following what was an impressive drive in the sprint race, he drove an even more impressive feature race. In the end, winning it from Louis in the end. Just managing to keep those medium tyres alive in the end to secure the victory. A stunning drive by a frankly stunning driver. I'm sure he'll be wanting to win again tonight, and it will certainly be interesting to see what you'll be able to pull off in the feature race in these mixed conditions. After Swizzy, I'm not sure if we have Katie Kai tonight. Unfortunately, Katie Kai did DNF in the sprint race in the sprint race last week, but he ended up finishing P5 in the feature race to really make up the points he lost in the feature race. Again, I hold out a slight faint little bit of hope that Kia Dekai will turn up tonight for the feature race, but I'm not 100% sure on that, Sarah.
I can confirm a late arrival, but he has made it for the feature race. I can see him just in the pits now, so better late than ever. But thank you very much, Kirk, for running us through the other half of the grid tonight. And before we head back over to qualifying, actually I'll put you on qualifying, we'll just talk about the track itself. So tonight, as you can see, we are racing around Spa Francorchamps. The track itself is 7 kilometres or 4.3 miles long with 20 turns in total. The circuit of Spa is a dedicated racing circuit located in Belgium. And Spa is one of the classic race circuits beloved by drivers and spectators alike, where today the true essence of speed can be explored in spectacular style. It is the current venue of the Formula 1 Belgian Grand Prix, hosting its first Grand Prix in 1925 and has held a Grand Prix every year since 1985 except 2003 and 2006. Other than Formula 1, Spa also hosts several other international events, including the 24 Hours of Spa, the World Endurance Championship, 6 Hours of Spa. And we all know the most famous part of the circuit is that Eau Rouge and Radion combination. Having negotiated the La Source hairpin, drivers race down a straight to the point where the track crosses the Eau Rouge stream for the first time before being launched steeply uphill into a sweeping left-right-left series of corners with a blind summit. Obviously, we are all aware multiple incidents have happened at the Eau Rouge Radion section of the circuit, raising some safety concerns, but nevertheless, a track that we all love, and we all love to drive on a series of games. But Kirk, what do you think about Spa as a whole?
Spa is a very legendary circuit. Obviously, been around for a very long time in multiple different iterations of the layout. It's a track that really values the bravery of the drivers. Obviously, to find the most amount of time, you really have to attack the curbs in the dry, and carry as much momentum as you can through the corners, taking full advantage of that. Um, I think I think this track we certainly should see the grid mixed up here tonight, um, as different drivers prefer different tracks. And obviously, we could see like Sir Pedro, who I do know has gone very well around here in the past, to possibly do quite well again tonight, Sarah.
Yeah, and as you can see, we just joined with Pedro on screen at the moment. He is currently our pole sitter with about a lap left to go, so all drivers will be heading on to their final lap. But a bit of a drift there from Pedro as well. But as I say that, commentator's curse, we have had a few drivers jumping up in the timetables. But Kirk, if you want to keep an eye on a few drivers, we'll see who sets the fastest lap of our 7th qualifying session of the season.
The track is looking very well. There is a very much a clear, defined, dry line forming. I'm surprised we haven't seen any drivers go onto the slicks yet, which I do not believe anybody is. So everybody will be setting their final lap times on the intermediate or wet tyre in some cases. Currently, Swizzy leads the way. That gap currently 3.4 seconds to the Dark Lord, and even further back to Manley. Obviously, these mixed conditions really mixing that grid up as we see the likes of Hartman and Haslett at the front, well, running towards the front of the pack in qualifying trim. Currently, possible multiple cases that could be made for impeding. See, it's quite a sloppy session out there from the drivers, or some of the drivers at least. Currently, Swizzy. I'm not sure if Swizzy's improving at the moment, but currently every driver is out on a lap, and I assume, looking how much this track is drying and how people are trying to search for the water, I assume everyone is going faster as well, Sarah.
Yeah, these conditions being one of the most difficult to navigate, obviously, I think we can all agree that we either want it fully wet or fully dry. These mixed conditions, it makes the track a lot more greasier than what a lot of drivers are used to, and it's about navigating the right amount of dry, the right amount of wet. So yeah, some tricky conditions in qualifying, and as you can see, you know, that gap between Swizzy and the Dark Lord sitting at around 3.4 sessions, with Swizzy going even faster by what looks like 1.9 seconds. So as you can see, like nearly on slicks, but not quite. I think very brave if anyone decided to go on slicks, but I'm not sure anybody did. But yeah, tricky conditions, and not conditions that are very easy to master, shall we say.
Absolutely not, as we see the Dark Lord taking pole by 1.2 seconds, but Swizzy is on a faster lap. Can he steal the pole position away from McManley? As we've seen Coach jump to P3, McManley taking that P3, Swizzy going quicker by 1.6 seconds. Who else is on a lap time? Coming up to the final corner, Griffin the Terrier is not on a faster lap. Neither is Haslett. That leaves our last big runner being Callum coming round the final corner. As he got the time, he has not got the time to beat Swizzy. Where is this going to put him on the grid? It is P3, only a tenth in front of LB Lewis, and then our final flying runner is Pedro. Can Pedro pull off an absolutely stunning lap and steal the pole position away from Swizzy as he comes round Blanchimont completely flat out, coming in towards the bus stop, braking just before the 100-meter board, really attacking that curb on the right. Right, to really attack that curb on the left as well. Can he get the car straightened up? Can he beat the lap time of Swizzy? No, he can't. Where's he going to put him? P2. What a fantastic qualifying from
What a
Pedro.
qualifying from Pedro. That caught us both by
Yeah,
surprise.
P. Yeah, fantastic lap from Pedro there. Really taking top advantage of these conditions. Well, in these sort of conditions, you want to be the last person to cross that lap time to start your final lap, and which is something Pedro did. Um, he was the last person to set a dry running lap time, and really took full advantage of that by securing P2 on the grid, Sarah.
Yeah, and like I say, we're both surprised by that. But I mean, what a qualifying! And I'm sure Pedro will be ecstatic, picking up a few more points. But most importantly, a front row start as well for himself, which will hopefully means he gets quite a clean getaway straight from the start and can fight the likes of the Dark Lord, Swizzy, Callum, McManley. But yeah, another big shout is LB Racing up in P5. That's a pretty good qualifying from him. And as soon as we
Absolutely.
get everyone coming back in, we will tell you the starting grid for the feature race. Kirk, if you want to go ahead and explain to the viewers our starting grid of the feature race.
Absolutely. So what was a very, very good lap in very, very changeable conditions. We have Swizzy taking pole on a 25.8. A fantastic lap, really under pressure to secure that lap time, and from the Dark Lord, and he ended up beating the Dark Lord's lap time by over 1.5 seconds in the end. Pedro, only driver of the session, taking P2. It'll be interesting to see how he can follow up on this qualifying position in the race. Obviously, finishing P4 in the sprint race is certainly having a very good round so far. Same with the Dark Lord, obviously winning the sprint race and qualifying P3 in qualifying. It's certainly all to play for in the race. Following that, we have Callum. Possibly slightly disappointed not to really take the fight to Swizzy during qualifying. Obviously missing out on the bonus points as well by only qualifying P4. And only just in front of LB Lewis, as Sarah said. LB Lewis taking P5, less than a tenth between Callum and LB Lewis there. And then we have Manley in P6, someone who I possibly should have expected to finish qualified just a little bit higher. Obviously, the conditions not really suiting that Merc or his driving style. Then we have P7 Midnight ISO, again another driver who usually excels in changeable conditions, making smart strategy calls, qualifying P7. Then in P8 we have Coach, who I believe at one point in the session was up there in third place, but obviously as the session ran on and the track dried out, more drivers improved. In P9 we have Hartman, obviously a driver of Hartman's stature, probably expected to be just a little bit higher up. Obviously again, we didn't really see anybody push the boundaries of the track. Obviously, as we saw it dry out in the end, I'm sure. I know I probably would have tried to get on the soft tyre at least. Even if it wasn't quicker in the end, it might have been worth the gamble to try and secure that a higher up qualifying position. And then in P10 and 11, we have our two promoted drivers from Split 2, Haslett and then ripping the tearing, with Katie Kai joining the session but not setting a lap time, Sarah.
Yeah, Katie Kai taking a little bit of a challenge, starting back of the grid. Maybe we might see him on the podium if that GTR in these conditions he can pull it off. But before we get into the feature race, we'll just give you a little bit of a recap from last week. Obviously, coming home in P1, we had Swizzy, Dark Lord in P2, and Callum in P3, and all three drivers, start qualifying quite high for tonight's feature race, so it's definitely a possibility that we might see kind of a replication of this, but we are getting ready for the start. So Kirk, if you want to take it away for me. The conditions looking a lot
Absolutely,
worse.
sir. Yeah, the track has certainly got a lot wetter from qualifying into this race. We've got a mix of drivers starting on the intermediate and the wet tyres, with our top five or top 7 or 8 all starting on the intermediate tyre. Everyone running side by side, keeping it clean for now. Possibly a little bit of contact there between Callum and Pedro as the Dark Lord jumps Pedro off the lap time. As Pedro getting all over that curve, is nothing that you do not want to do in the wet conditions. Swizzy being able to break away at the front of that pack, that gap now about 6/10 of a second as everybody runs up in the spray, going through El Rouge and up over Radion. Swizzy running quite wide there on the exit. We see a lot of drivers struggling with oversteer as we see a poor run through Radion from the Dark Lord. Now being put under pressure from Pedro. Can Pedro go round the outside of the Dark Lord heading into Lecom? Obviously, the Dark Lord is not going to want to give that position up, as he knows if he lets Susie gets away, it would be a near impossible task to catch him up. As we do, Pedro does hold that position, and everybody gets through Lecom, Lecom cleanly. As we see Coach and Hartman going side by side, going through Normandy. Hartman really struggling on the traction on the exit, which allowed Coach to hold that position. And I just want to say a good start from Riffin de Terran, who has overtook both Midnight ISO and Hassler off the line up into P9 currently. The drivers on the wet tyres not really making progress, even though we saw it was very wet at the start. We have Callum in P6 dropping 2 positions off the start. That Callum not doing very well there. As we see at the front, Swizzy already getting that gap up to 1.5 seconds from the Dark Lord, followed by Pedro. Lil B. Lewis is trying to defend from from McManley, as we see possible a little bit of rubbing contact there between the two drivers, which cost McManley the P5 to Callum. As we see that all the drivers in front are really starting to struggle on these intermediate tyres, as this track is getting very damp indeed, Sarah.
Yeah, it's just on that crossover point of intermediates and wets, as you can see by the marker on the left hand side. It is on 2/3, which is do you gamble on the wets, do you gamble on the intermediates? Both tyres, might struggle to start off with, but yeah, if it continues like this, I'd see a lot of drivers, going on the wets feel a little bit more comfortable, but all drivers, like you say, getting away cleanly. And Pedro and Louis going side by side into the bus stop. Pedro getting very wiggly on the curb. The curbs, especially in these sort of conditions, you want to stay well clear of, and the AstroTurf as well. But still side by side as we go on to lap number 2. I've got to say, a impressive lap number 1 from all of the drivers across the board, all getting away relatively cleanly in will be a very tricky race indeed. But Pedro has got in front of Louis.
Yeah, it looked like possibly a bit of contact there between LB Lewis and McManley. As LB Lewis gave him a little bit of a squeeze on the exit of La Source. McManley is now up into P5. It'd be interesting to see. Oh, it's Pedro touched that inside curb, which is something you don't want to do, as that Porsche gets very sideways up and over Radion. Is that going to put him under pressure? Not quite. It looks like Louis might have possibly had a poor exit as well. Everyone is now sorted themselves out, as we see on the replay. What a save from Pedro there, Sarah.
Yeah, it was Tokyo drifting in the wet by Pedro there. Looked very cool, but I'm sure, probably scaring Pedro half to death, as that's not where you want to drift. But yeah, holds it and actually gets quite a big gap to the Dark Lodge behind, who is coming attack of Callum, who has managed to go, not just yet, but they are side by side, swapping positions. So looks like the Dark Lord struggling in these sort of conditions in the GTR.
I just want to say, Sarah, it looks like the rain could have possibly stopped, as I don't see anybody's wipers going. So I believe the rain might have stopped. As Swizzy's picked up a 1 second penalty, Sarah. I'm not sure where you might have picked that up at.
We can try. I was just having a look at the battle for. Oh, we've joined him just as he's already picked that up, so not quite sure. Maybe potentially colliding with Barrett, and oh my god, all the drivers from about P2 all the way down to, well, no, P3 all the way down, all together on the same part of the grid. So we've got quite a few people going side by side.
Oh, bloody! It certainly looks like there's quite a bit of rubbing in this entire pack that stretches second place right down towards right towards 10th or 11th, should I say? Um, it certainly seems like it may have not been the cleanest of driving between them, as it has allowed both Swizzy and Pedro to really break away at the front of the pack. Obviously, Swizzy serving that 1 second penalty that he managed to pick up somewhere. That gap now down to just over a second. It looked like Swizzy had a very sloppy bus stop as well, which again is allowed Pedro to catch right up that gap now under a second as we head down to La Source. And it looks like everyone is still battling quite aggressively down towards down at the second half of the grid, Sarah.
Yeah, we'll just keep an eye on this pack here. It's so good to see everyone so close to each other in very tricky conditions indeed, and a few losers, like not losers, but a few kind of people getting caught out by the weather conditions. Obviously, one being McManley, two as well being Callum, who is quite far down, a lot further down than what we usually see him. This, 3 laps in, but it just goes to show, wet weather racing, it's not for everyone, and it is very tricky in the cars. So maybe that McLaren not being the best in the wet weather.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the moisture bar now. I know we've got quite a few of the drivers, such as Hartman, Hassler, Coach, and Ripping the Terran, are all on the wet tyres, which are not going to like this track as it dries out, Sarah.
No, I think we'll definitely see with the track evolution that, some people might, if that bar goes below that 1/3, we might see a few drivers pit for the slick tyres. It might be a bit too early at the moment to do that, but as we get into the race, if it continues to dry up and the sun takes its hat off, we might see drivers going on the slick tyres. But yeah, anyone that's on wets at the moment, they'll be starting to overheat, and that's when it becomes a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more slidey for a few drivers.
Absolutely, it's not. And then, as you mentioned, as the track dries out, possibly people. Oh, his Swizzy goes very wide, touches a bit of a curb in the damp track, and he loses the rear end of the car, managing to just keep it on the track. That is certainly not what he wants to do as he tries to build the gap to Pedro. That gap that was up at just about 2 seconds is now back down to just over 3/4, or now just under 3/4 of a second. I said in these conditions, even the experienced pros like Swizzy are making a quite simple mistake, Sarah.
Yeah, and obviously these mistakes, it's very easily to make as well, because obviously a track like this, you've not got those barriers that can collect you and kind of send you facing the right way. You've got either the curbs or the AstroTurf, which again, like we've said previously, adds to that unpredictability. That if you even touch the curb slightly, that was a big dive bomb from the Dark Lord, not getting the move done, but Pedro on the curbs looking a very bit drifty again. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Dark Lord has been a little bit brave or trying to make that move stick, but with the track being quite wet, couldn't brake in time. But yeah, luckily avoids Pedro, and they both live to fight another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very opportunistic move there. I'm not sure if the Dark Club possibly went a little bit wide and got onto a very wet part of the circuit and maybe possibly aquaplaned into turn 1, but it certainly seemed to catch Pedro by surprise, Sarah. Is that it looks like the moisture bar on the track as well is now just gone under the 1/3 bar, which means that I believe the slicks are now the optimum tyre, Sarah.
Yeah, although obviously with some of the lines around the corners here, you do want to take a little bit of curbing, so it might be a bit too early for slicks, unless someone's feeling really, really brave. and wants to try it out. And I'm sure, all the drivers will be asking who's going to do it first, who's going to go on the slicks, and they'll be keeping an eye on to see if, they're setting faster lap times or if it's a bit too early. But yeah, especially if you through some sections, it does look quite dry now.
Yeah, I believe if this could really help you if you know what you're doing, this could really help you gain some time, especially if you're stuck in this mid-pack, stuck behind the wet runners. Maybe early stop for the slick time might be the way to go. Is it in some areas it looks like that dry line is quite wide, but in other parts it may not be as wide as you'd preferably like it to be, Sarah.
No, as I just joined on KD the Kai there, getting very wide and getting on the Asher and the curbs, but manages to keep hold of it. It just goes to show if you go that a little bit wider into a corner, as it goes extremely wide, going it just before the bus stop, it just goes to show if you put even half the car on a wet patch, it becomes very unpredictable. But like you say, if you know what you're doing and if you want to chance it, it's now's the time to think about if the slick is the right option. As we have, I see someone just dived into the pits. A couple people actually. We've got Sabre and Hassler and Hartman pitting, and I'll be interested to see if they're going to risk it or not, or if they're going to go on to that intermediate tyres.
I mean, if you go on the slick tyre and you start catching the leaders up by quite a big margin, obviously you'd be able to know that, or you'd know that, but the leaders will not, as realistically, the leaders cannot see the gap to the cars but behind. It's certainly interesting to say. I do believe, as we see Hassler, he chooses to come out on the intermediate tyre. Be interesting to see what Hartman comes out on as he takes a full tank of fuel. It comes out on the soft tyre, so we have our first slick runner, Sarah. He's got to be very careful as he exits the pits, as it is very, very damp on the exit, as he loops it on the exit. And obviously just being a bit too eager on the throttle there, Sarah.
Yeah.
Not exactly what you want to do.
No, that's not what you want to do. But hopefully, now that he's made that little bit of a mistake coming out the pits, he can get on the dry line, and put those softs to full use. But it just goes to show, coming out of the pits is probably going to be the most dangerous part for everybody, especially this El Rouge and Radion section as well, going over the hill.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sarah, but it looks like Haskell has dropped it on the top of Radion as well, picking up severe front damage and rear damage as well. Obviously, that is not gone well at all for him. Obviously, making that pit stop for the intermediate turn, instantly putting it in the wall, unfortunately, Sarah.
Yeah, it just goes to show, coming off of a tyre that he probably felt comfortable on, to go on to the intermediates and not being up to temperature, maybe potentially going a little bit wider into the El Rouge and Radion section and making a little bit of a mistake. But it's now, does he, he knows that Hartman's gone on those slick tyres. Will he pit again?
Swizzy's in, Sarah.
Swizzy is in.
Swizzy, possibly the first of our front runners to go off the wet onto the slick tyre. That promotes Pedro up into the lead. Now, if I'm Pedro and I'm Dark Horse, I need to be setting the fastest lap I can, because this is going to possibly make or break my race. Because if I get undercut by the likes of Swizzy, I know that I may never see him again during this race. It is imperative that this lap is a flat-out lap, and they're both giving it their absolute everything, as we see Pedro taking a very aggressive line through El Rouge and Radion. So they are certainly giving it all they've got, Sarah.
They are giving it 120%, as Swizzy pits for the softs as well. So obviously seeing that dry line and seeing that Hartman's done it, as we have Dark Lord and Pedro going side by side. Oh, bit of a shove from Dark Lord there on Pedro. I think that'll be one for the stewards to look at afterwards. But Louis does look like he's slowed down to give that position back to Pedro. But yeah, it looked like a little bit of a nudge going through that section there. So they'll swap positions back and try fight for that position again. But yeah, it just goes to show these two battling it out. Potentially, maybe that might have cost them a little bit of time to Swizzy. But also, like going back to my original point, Swizzy on that soft set of tyres, let's see what he can do. But I can just see just
Absolutely.
behind we have LB Racing and McManley as well, which will be looking to make as much time as they can to our last season's champ Swizzy.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Sarah. It is definitely in the hands of the slick runners as Swizzy is catching over a second in each corner he goes through. Or as he touches a little bit of curb there, maybe a little bit of a brown trousers moment there for Swizzy, but he is definitely softs are definitely the much faster tire now. Keeping in mind that you keep it on the dry stuff and don't run wide onto the wet stuff, Sarah.
Yeah, it's going to be crucial that he doesn't go onto the wet part of the track and stays on that dry line. But yeah, navigating it well so far. As we see a little bit of spray as he touches the curb. But yeah, I think, the potentially the right call from Swizzy there. Waiting maybe one more lap just to see, how the evolution of the track is drying up. And it looks like so far he's made the right call to go onto that soft set of tyres. As we see the Dark Lord coming in, he's probably seen that what Swizzy's up to, so it's probably going to go onto the slick tyres as well. But yeah, unfortunately, obviously, Hartman making that slight mistake coming out of the pits, but he seems to be doing quite well. P9 gaining a position on Coach, Rippin, Terran and Sabre, who's still carrying a little bit of front end damage. But and Rippin carrying some front end damage as well. But P12, P11, P10, all and Midnight now as well on the slicks and KD the Kai. So yeah, everyone coming in, deciding I've had enough of those intermediate and wet tyres.
I just want to say, obviously, apart from our top three, everybody is now on the intermediate tyre. It looks like it is a very dry track, apart from on the exit of turn one, the source, where there isn't that much of a dry line there, and it certainly seems like you could certainly be struggling just a little bit on the exit of turn one if you're not careful, Sarah.
Yeah, it's going to be crucial for drivers to get that turn one right, as like we said, it can make or break your next lap. And as you just said, obviously our top three still on that intermediate tyre.
I was just going to say, Haslett has dropped it again, unfortunately, picking up severe front end damage. Oh, he spin loops it round again by just going a little bit too wide and touching wet stuff, Sarah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think he might be experiencing some wheel issues as well. I had a quick glance into the chat, so potentially, the wheel setup not being kind to him. But I'm sure, hopefully he'll. Only 7 laps in, we've still got about 42 minutes left, and every position is points, remember, so hopefully he'll manage to finish the race and pick up some points. But apart from that, Swizzy is rapidly approaching McManley. That gap was about 20 seconds about a second ago, and now it is down to 15 seconds, so if I was your top 3, I'd be coming in now, and I think I've just seen from the mini-map that we do have Pedro coming in, but LB and McManley deciding to go for another lap.
Yeah, certainly interesting to see. I'd say a few laps ago when Swizzy first pitted, or first exited the pit, the gap to lead was 35 seconds. The gap was to Pedro, and by the time Pedro pitted, that gap had come down to under 20 seconds. As we see, BMW, that's Haslett, is looped it around on the exit of turn one. Unfortunately, again. But as I say, the soft runner of Swizzy was catching by over 7.5 seconds a lap. Swizzy takes a lot of that inside curve, very dangerous thing to do on the coming over. Ready on, Sarah.
Yeah, and I was just keeping on board with our front 2 runners, LB Racing and McManley, obviously still on that intermediate set of tyres, and got a battle on our hands. But obviously, I think they'll be seeing, Swizzy is rapidly approaching. So it's when do they come in? When do they come off of those intermediate tyres? I think next lap is probably the ideal time to do it, as on the meter to the left. It's only on the curbs and a few sections, as we see McManley going quite wide onto the curb there, that it is still quite wet. But yeah, I mean, all slick runners doing. You go for it. It's right. You go for it.
Say, coming to make an overtake, if you try and make an overtake and you touch the wet stuff, you you could certainly be in a spot of bother, couldn't you, Sarah?
Oh, 100%, yeah. I don't think we'll see too many overtakes just yet, as, like I say, no one really wants to go onto that wet part of the track on slick tyres. And these two on the intermediates, which are quite worn, they even the traction, they don't have the traction to overtake each other on the wet part of the track. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult race to overtake people, and I think, you know, the pit stops, the strategies will come into play as we see a yellow flag.
Oh no! Oh, coach has speared it into the wall. I saw him I saw him get on the wet stuff on the exit of turn one and loop it, and he's done it again at the top of the hill, coming up over Radion, taking too much of that inside curb, and again, obviously it's just speared him into the wall. As we see a replay of what's happening, yeah, clips the inside curb, and just obviously once you get on that wet stuff, there's really no control on the car on the slicks. It just sent him straight into the wall, Sarah.
Yeah, unfortunately, just goes to show that what we've been saying, that as soon as you put even a tyre on the curbs or the wet part of the track, it is very, very dangerous at the moment, as McManley still circulating on those intermediate tyres, so potentially trying to make a strategy work that he's got in mind, or potentially might feel that the track's not ready to go on the set of softs or set of mediums yet, but you know, might be losing a little bit of time to the runners around him.
Oh, absolutely. As we see, the last lap from McManley is a 2:41. That's over 20 seconds slower than Swizzy. And again, as we see Cade the Kite in the wall coming up over Radion, another driver making a mistake coming up over Radion, Sarah.
Yeah, potentially McManley has been seeing these happen, and believes, you know, he's more confident on those set of intermediates compared to the softs. But as we join the replay of Katie the Kai,
Far behind there, Sarah.
Yeah, it did go quite far, that one. But we'll see if we can catch it on replay. Not sure if it took us too far back. Unfortunately, technology deciding when and where it wanted to show us. But it's quite far back, isn't it? I don't think we're going to be able to see it on replay.
I'll keep you updated on the front of the pack. Swizzy currently leading by 13 seconds to McManley on the intermediate tyre. And I just want to say that the gap Swizzy has to third place, which is the next slick runner, is over 30 seconds, Sarah, as Pedro runs very wide and almost crashes. Cade Kai has crashed again on the exit, coming through Puon, on the exit of Puon. He's touched the wet stuff, and again, he's crashed off again.
We eventually got to the replay.
Finally so him going into the wall.
It took us a bit of time.
Very, very good drive so far from LB Lewis up into, still running up in P4, Sarah.
Yeah, and Callum picking up a 3-second penalty as well, which he is taken now. But yeah, unfortunate for KD the Kai having 2 incidents within a couple of laps. And, you know, the replay taking its time to show us, you know, extending probably KD the Kai's pain. But yeah, unfortunately, KD the Kai might have to pit to repair that damage, because that is some extensive damage.
Is there it? I feel like almost anyone could be on the podium this race. Everywhere I look, I see drivers making mistakes here and there. Obviously with the offline being very wet, it is extremely scary for the drivers from wise. Again, you see Pedro being very brave, going up over Radion, taking a lot of the inside curb and using the curb on the exit as well, Sarah. Certainly a lot braver than I'd be in these conditions.
Oh, 100%. I'd be I'd probably be at walking pace around here in these sort of conditions. But, you know, drivers, we have quite a fearless bunch of drivers, you know, willing to go on the slicks, but, you know, still touch a little bit of the curbs. But I'm running a little bit wide. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes, as we've seen so far, unfortunately, a little bit of crashes, a little bit of collisions with either the wall or some grass. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, I've got to say, at the moment, you know, LB Racing, like you said, he's been one of the standout drivers of tonight so far in that BMW. Not done too much wrong. You know, pitted onto the slicks at the right time. Kept on the intermediates for that one more lap, and it seems to have done him quite well.
Absolutely. As we see, Manley has made a mistake, Sarah. Going towards the right-hander that has no real apex. It looks like he might have dipped it on the wet stuff and spun. It seems like this track is currently not agreeing with most drivers, Sarah.
No, a lot of as we go on board with him again, and he does touch the curb, and it spins out again. So potentially, obviously, you know, McManley was our last runner on the intermediates. Maybe potentially felt a bit more comfortable in the intermediates in these tricky conditions. So on the softs, he's trying to explore, you know, the limits of the track and the limits of the conditions. But coach looking to unlapped himself to McManley, but yeah, McManley having a bit of a tricky time at the moment.
Swizzy's. I'm not sure what I've just seen Swizzy do. Swizzy going down the Camel Straight. It's going purposely driving within on the wet line. I'm not sure if he's trying to cool those soft tyres down, or whether he's just showing off to everyone that gap at almost 40 seconds now. Pedro, Sarah.
Oh, being a car that's very difficult on tyre wear, it might be, you know, a strategic play going on that wet part, try and cooling it down as best as he can, because obviously he'll be looking at that gap and he'll want to try and maintain that gap, I presume. So the only way to do that is to keep the life in the tyres, which look like they're all I mean, not all of them, but the front two tyres especially look like they're about half worn now. So I think he's trying to prolong the life of those tyres if he can. But very brave indeed, you know, coming off of the straight into a braking zone when you've got kind of wet tyres. It's going to be tricky, but sets a purple sector 2. So it shows that it's working. Shows that he's
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the gap is nearly at 40 seconds. It's 39 seconds as we stand to Pedro. And that's about a free pit stop if he needs it.
LB Lewis going a bit wide, and Nibs normally getting on that wet stuff. We're just managing to keep it on track for the most part, although losing. It was like another few seconds to Callum. It looks like he has had some slight drama somewhere, picking up damage on the front and that front right tyre.
Yeah, and Callum, last time I checked, was Callum was in P4, so they have swapped position somewhere. And in the distance, we have Midnight chasing LB Racing down, who currently is got some damage as well. So Midnight and LB both picking up damage within the last couple of laps. So it goes back to that question that we really don't know the answer for. But is it pit, repair that damage, or is it keep to your original strategy and hope for the best?
I think I've been trying to. Was seeing that I'm currently up in P5. I'll probably just keep going around the track. I'll be keeping an eye out on the driver behind me, see how much time he's catching, see if it is really worth pitting to repair the damage or not. I do believe it would cost him a few miles per hour in a straight line, but if he seems to be really alright with it now, there's no reason why he shouldn't keep going, Sarah.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, we saw Katie the Kai having a few incidents a lap or so ago. He's obviously come in, repaired that damage, and it's dropped him to 7th place. So I think, you know, drivers will be keeping that in mind. But I've not been keeping an eye out on the Dark Lord, but the Dark Lord seems to have had quite a tough time as I joined him. We get very, very sideways there. But seems to have a little bit of a tough time on the slicks to start off with. But I'm sure he'll be looking to make a few positions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see, McManley is going a bit wide, and Nibs normally getting on that wet stuff. We're just managing to keep it on track for the most part, although losing. It looks like he has some slight drama somewhere, picking up damage on the front and that front right tyre. I see wiper movement. Is it raining again, Sarah?
Oh, it
Looks
might
like the
be.
track is getting. Looks like the track is getting wetter again, Sarah.
Right,
So
it's a Dark
it'll
Lord.
be
He's
interesting
near
to
the
see.
pits. Is he going to be? Is that the perfect time to start raining for him? Can he go on that intermediate tyre? Is he going to pit? No, he goes round again.
No, he isn't. Obviously, they know something that we do not know. Well, it looks like the rain stopped again. It looked like it come down for just a little bit, and now it has stopped again. Again. Um, yeah, it looks like there could be a possible little bit of rain towards the back end of the track, as I see if one or two cars wipers going just a little bit, but nothing too much at the moment, Sarah.
Yeah, the conditions, saying that I'm raining a little bit, but not too much. A lot of drivers, obviously, like you said, might be seeing a different story. Raining at one half and not raining on the other, or just a light little shower towards the back end of the course. But not enough to go onto those inters or softs. Just a little bit of wiper blade movement. But luckily, no drivers getting caught out by the added bit of rain. But obviously, we've just gone over halfway into the race. So there is a chance it could rain again at any point, and the skies don't look too welcoming or too sunny. So it's definitely a possibility that it could rain at any point.
Absolutely. It looks like that damage that Midnight ISO and LB Lewis have got is costing them a bit of time, as McManley is now catching. It's about running about 9 seconds faster than LB Lewis, and about 4 or 5 seconds quicker than Midnight Sarah. So it looks like that damage might be costing them more time than they might realise.
Yeah, obviously this kind of the characteristics of Spa. It's got a very high speed sections, and obviously if that damage is affecting their top end speed, it is going to lose them quite a lot of time to the runners that don't have any damage. So potentially we might see an alteration of both of their strategies, or they might try and brave it out. But obviously damage affecting both of their races. And I'm sure McManley will be trying, his best not to spin it and to catch Midnight as soon as he can.
Absolutely. Just a quick note, Katie Kai set the new fastest lap of the race at 2 minute 18.4, but he is almost 2 minutes behind the leader of Swizzy. After the first few laps, this race is really opened out, hasn't it, Sarah?
It
I think the
has.
current closest battle is the battle for P4. The gap between P4 and P6 about 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's really opened up, and Swissy having the better fortune of all of the drivers. Pretty much hasn't made any sort of mistakes. A few kind of mini sideways moments, but nothing too bad. But the other drivers getting getting the worst end of the deal, having a few spins, having a few off moments, and obviously a few drivers picking up some damage. So I think for a lot of drivers, as much as we love the weather, we've not seen it so far this season. It is great to have a little bit more unpredictability, but obviously sometimes coming with unpredictability is a few more crashes, which I'm sure the drivers on one hand will be loving the weather, but on the other hand they'll be hating it at the same time because of the damage.
Absolutely. As I'm just looking at the radar at the moment, and currently, for the meanwhile, no more rain is predicted. At least for the next few minutes. Um, for the next few minutes, there is no rain on the radar, Sarah.
Cool. So I think McManley will be very happy about that, as that gap has gone down to about one and a half seconds ish average. So he'll be looking to try and overtake Midnight within the next lap or so, and obviously the next target will be LB Racing. But yeah, McManley making a few mistakes with those spins, but obviously not crashing or not hitting any sort of barrier. So has come out slightly better than the two in front. Obviously damage free, which is crucial for top end speed. And what looked like a difficult first stint for him, he's really come into his own, and that Merc has seemed it seems, a lot faster now, and looks like on this straight here, getting very close to midnight, we might see an overtake. We do, and makes it look quite easy, don't you think, Kirk?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that damage really slowing down. Well, that front end damage that Midnight ISO does have is slowing him down quite dramatically in a straight line. Um, Now it sends McManley on his way to hunt down LB Lewis. That gap about 5 seconds now, Sarah.
Yeah, and as we see, Swizzy's just come in as well with minimal fuel, shall we say? But obviously, with the tyre rule, that he can just go on to another set of softs if he really wants to. Obviously, a lot of drivers they've used the 2 compound rule already because of the intermediates that they started on. So the tyre rule in a way goes out the window, and they can go on. A set. If they really wanted to be really aggressive, they can go on a set of softs right to the end.
Absolutely. Obviously, only about 24 bits left of this race. It certainly seems like um, anything can really happen. It looks like the track's now dry enough to be able to use the curbs, as I see the Dark Lord attacking the curbs quite aggressively and not really losing too much time, Sarah. Looks like this track is pretty much well and truly dried out for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, I think definitely I don't advise any drivers going on the grass because that definitely won't be dry yet. Yeah, Pedro going our net leader at the moment. Obviously, Swizzy's only 7.5 seconds behind, but Pedro again having a pretty good race, don't you think?
Absolutely, obviously qualifying P2, avoiding the worst of the drama, and he's really been able to capitalise. Although even coming out, even after a pit stop, that gap to Swizzy is only 7 seconds, which is probably not really what Pedro wants to see, Sarah.
No, definitely not what you want to see because obviously Pedro having probably a pit stop needed as well at some point. But that goes to show, the gap that Swizzy had was at one moment I think it was about 45 seconds to Pedro. So Swizzy will be looking to extend that gap again. But yeah, I mean Swizzy's kind of in a world of his own at the moment. He knows that a lot of the drivers around him will have to pit for some fuel, maybe for another set of tyres. So I think he'll be feeling confident about the win.
Oh, absolutely. I look at the gap. That gap's already come down by almost a second in half a lap from where he's come out of the pit, Sarah. So certainly only a matter of time before he catches up and overtakes Pedro.
Oh, although
Swizzy, that is.
getting held up by a little bit of traffic of Hartman. I think Swizzy looked like he wanted to overtake Hartman on the apex, which unfortunately didn't let him through. As Hartman goes in the way of Swizzy again, Swizzy flashing his lights to let Hartman know that he is right behind. He needs to get through as quickly as he can. So hopefully, Hartman will be looking in that mirror, seeing that Swizzy is behind and wants to overtake him.
Obviously, the two Lexus drivers coming to blows. Team Lexus not quite as coordinated as possibly you would have expected, Sarah.
No, yeah, as Swizzy frantically, flashing the lights, politely asking Hartman to move out of the way. Obviously Hartman will be getting blue flagged, and you don't necessarily want to be following a driver going through this Eau Rouge Radion section. So it looks like Hartman does move out of Swizzy's way. Swizzy gets back through, and will look like he's on the charge for Pedro again, but doesn't lose too much time with being behind Hartman. But obviously, when you're trying to get back in the lead, the traffic sometimes does hold you back a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we saw it in Dragon Trail just a little bit where Hartman again, the lap traffic of Hartman was getting involved in the battles of the front runners. Obviously, not what the front runners want, but if you've got the, I guess it's situational. Obviously, in that situation, Hartman had come out on fresh soft, so he had the pace for his first few laps to stick towards the runners, the leaders, should I say? But in a situation like that, where Hartman is on quite worn soft tires, and you've got the leader, well, second place on basically what is basically fresh softs, you should probably be getting out of the way a little bit sooner. It's probably not really what you should be doing. I was going to say McManley has made quite a simple move there, and LB Lewis now promoting McManley up into P4, and LB Lewis is now demoted just a little bit down to P5. Is Midnight ISO, I believe, is also lost the position to Katie Kai now. Katie Kai flying currently is as a fast as that time of a 16.9. So this track is well and truly in the dry stages now, so because I believe the quickest lap I did see around here during dry practice was it was a low 16. So this track is well and truly dry, Sarah.
Yeah, as we just went on board with Katie the Kai again, set in a purple sector, and he's looking quite brave. He's full throttle through some of the sections here, so he's looking to get as close as he can to the podium. Obviously, you've got just under 20 minutes to go, so it's definitely a possibility if you can hold on to those tyres and the fuel. But yeah, I mean, he's not afraid to go onto that slightly damp area, and as you can see, the gap that he's already built to Midnight is already 4 seconds, so it goes to show how fast Katie the Kai really is. But yeah, unfortunately, obviously not set in a qualifying time did really put him on the back foot.
Absolutely. We see Midnight ISO again is now only got a 12 seconds between him and the Dark Lord Louis. Maybe it is about time to pit and get that damage fixed, Sarah. Because
Yeah.
I believe that is what he's doing right now.
Commentators curse, but in a good way. Telling Midnight to come in, and he does listen sometimes. But yeah, looks like he'll be repairing that damage and going on his which look like it could be his final stint. You know, if he takes a full tank of fuel, maybe potentially another set of soft tyres, he'll be looking to go to the end of the race. But yeah, look, out of the two, he obviously holding on to that damage for quite a while, and potentially, you know, maybe losing a bit of time, but also saving track position. But it might lose him a few positions here with a longer pit stop.
I was going to say this track is now gone very, very foggy or foggy slash hazy. Is there possibly more rain coming? Looking at the radar, it looks like we could be getting a little bit more rain, Sarah.
Oh, that's going to be a bit tricky for the drivers such as Callum, who have pitted for a fresh set of softs. So potentially, in intermediates for Midnight. Midnight is spotted the rain. Midnight is going on to the intermediate tyres. He's looked ahead. He's looked to see what the weather forecast is, and he's gone on to the inters. Is that a good call or
Yeah,
not?
but Sarah, the rain is still 25 miles out. The track's not going to be. The track is bone dry. I believe we got people coming in just a bit too early for the intermediates. I think it's by the time the rain comes, it's still going to take a few, maybe 1 or 2 laps for it to really dampen up to go to the wet
Yes,
tires or
Swizzy as
intermediate
well
tires.
coming in after a very recent pit stop. So is he going? Is he spotted the rain? Is he going on to the intermediates early? And we've got Pedro into the
Yeah,
pits as well.
but it still hasn't started. Midnight Ice has now completed the first sector, and it still hasn't started raining yet. So the rain is still a ways away yet.
And we've got our leader
Um,
Swizzy onto the intermediates as well.
yeah, but there's no rain. They're just going to eat the tires up. There's still no rain. The rain should be hitting the track soon, but it is not in a heavy intensity at the moment. It's going to take a little while for the track to dampen up. You're really going to have to try and baby these intermediates until it starts raining. As we see, the wiper blades are going, and the rain is here, Sarah.
The rain is eventually here, yeah, but Midnight, you know, going on to those intermediates very, very early, which sent some of the drivers in a little bit of a frantic pit stop, you know, getting on them early as well. But, you know, that might go to help, you know, the likes of Midnight. He saw it, he predicted that the rain was coming in the next few laps, and went to go on them early to overtake quite a few people on the pits. As we see Callum going on full wets. Callum on full wets, where a lot of the drivers are deciding on going onto the intermediate tyres.
Certainly a very brave choice. Maybe he's seeing something we're not seeing. Um, or maybe decide to go a little bit safer. Um, you see, all the drivers, as you see, ripping the tearing is still on the slick tires. That is obviously not going to do his race any favors. But and coach is in the wall as well, Sarah. At Lecombs, the coach has gone around to do another lap. I'm not sure why he's done that. So we still have three drivers currently on the slick tyres, Sarah. That's Hassett, Coach, and Rippin de Terran.
Yeah, unfortunately, maybe caught out in like you say they saw the rain coming, but they didn't think it would come this early, as we quite see Saber, aka Hassett, crawling into the pits on those set of softs, which I'm sure Coach and Ripon de Terran will also be doing. But yeah, went from 0 to full rain again, which a very smart choice by the likes of Swizzy, Midnight pitting on the intermediates. Although Midnight not making up any positions might have been a little bit too far back to make that early pit stop work. But
Yeah, might have actually lost position to the Dark Lord as well, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously had to repair that damage no matter what. But potentially, that one lap where it wasn't raining.
The car spun, Sarah, losing a position to LB Lewis, promoting LB Lewis back into P5, and now the Dark Lord is looking at possibly going around the outside of Katie Kai, which he does. This track is now heading into the dark blue of rain, so at this point, it's the wet tyre will be the tyre to use, which is currently in Callum's favour, Sarah.
Yeah. Again, potentially, maybe looking just that a little bit further in time, and could see that that dark blue section of rain coming and going on the wets a little bit early. But we might see the likes of Swizzy trying to battle it out on the intermediates. Although Swizzy getting very sideways as well through some of the sections, so it's going to be very, very difficult for the drivers to keep it on the track, as we see Swizzy nearly drifting around this corner here, and I mean, it looks cool, all the cars drifting around, but it's going to be very tricky to get to the finish line.
Absolutely, especially if this track could possibly dry out again. I'm not sure what tyres I'd want to be on at the moment, intermediates or wets, because it seems like that gap is gone up a little bit between Callum and McManley. This track is certainly treacherous at the moment, Sarah, to say the least.
Yeah, I think a lot of drivers, will be tiptoeing on track at the moment, not wanting to put a foot wrong, as we see, obviously, Swizzy.
It's like Kader Kai must have had some more troubles again somewhere. He picked both front and rear end damage up.
Yeah,
and in general, it's not been very good for Kai, has it?
No, it looked like there were spouts of, where Kader Kai might be on another run for the podium, but the wet weather having slightly different plans for him, and obviously, unfortunately, just caught a little bit of a puddle, which did send him spinning, and unfortunately, we missed it, but must have got another little bit of an off-track excursion. But that promotes Midnight upper place, and McManley in third place again. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the drivers, they're tiptoeing around the track, and I mean, I think Kader the Kai won't be complaining. He's still got the fastest lap point, and I don't think anyone's beaten that currently.
Oh, well, I don't think anybody should be beating that anytime soon. Just put into perspective, the fastest lap in the drive is KD Kai 2:16.5, and currently our leader Swizzy is in the 2:47s, over 30 seconds a lap slower than what peak conditions were, Sarah. This track is absolutely sodden, for a lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I was just keeping an eye on the battle between McManley and Callum. Obviously, Callum on the wet and McManley on the intermediates. That gap is around about 3 seconds on average. So, I think Callum might have the upper hand against McManley here, being on the slightly grippier tyres. But nevertheless, the wets will still be a little bit unpredictable. Is it as it is on the cusp of intermediate and wet tyres. So it's just about, who stays on the grey stuff and not on the curbs.
Absolutely. I do believe our closest battle. It looks like Manley could possibly have a little bit of a mistake somewhere, as that gap between the two drivers is now down to just over 2 seconds. Callum runs very deep into the source. I'm not sure if that was the optimal line for him, but it seems to possibly not cost him much time. Another close battles for P5 between LB Lewis and the Dark Lord. That gap again now just under 3 seconds. So we've got two quite close battles going on at the moment, Sarah.
Yeah, and so obviously what we like to see, but in tricky conditions, battling with drivers, it's it's going to be basically who's braver, who can brake a little bit later, who can kind of get the traction down, because obviously no one wants to accelerate too early in these sort of conditions. So yeah, it's going to be tough for for some overtaking opportunities, but I'm sure the drivers will be kind of not eyeing away, but they'll be seeing where they're stronger, maybe where their opponents slightly weaker, and we'll try and capitalise on that as we see the battle between Callum and McManley about 2.5 to 3 seconds. So roughly just under 10 minutes to go, and only about 3 to 4 laps left. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top on these battles here.
Is it going to be a Dragon Trail all over again, where we see McManley and Callum the final few laps for that final podium position? Yeah, everything seems to be stabilising at the moment. On the last lap, Louis was a few seconds quicker than LB Lewis, but it's certainly going to be interesting to see if the Dark Lord can get the move done on Lewis. He's going to be getting all kinds of sideways through Pouon.
Yeah, and just flicking through all of the drivers out on track. We've also got Hartman on the wets as well, which still looks like he's having a little bit of a difficult time on those wet tyres. But yeah, a few drivers having a little bit of a tricky time. That's hard to say quickly. A tricky time in these wet conditions. As in the background, so LB Lewis in the BMW getting a little bit sideways, but it is a BMW. But KD the Kai pitting again, so potentially picking up damage again. So maybe potentially KD the Kai pushing hard to make up a few positions, but might be a retirement.
He's been in the pits for about 4.5 minutes, so it could possibly be a retirement there, Sarah. I'm not quite sure. We're heading into the 7.5 minutes to go, Sarah. It certainly seems the battle is heating up for that final podium position, and for P5, Sarah.
Yeah, and like you said a minute ago, I think all the drivers like to give us some last lap battles, so I wouldn't put it past them, to bring it to the wire, and we'll see a couple of last lap battles between some drivers. But yeah, it definitely looks like a retirement there from KD the Kai, which unfortunately means I don't think he'll get that fastest lap point, as I believe it's only the top 10 that qualify for that fastest lap point. So yeah, might be losing a little bit of points here tonight, which obviously unfortunate when he's quite high up in the championship. But it just goes to show, the wet weather conditions are very difficult to navigate. And KD the Kai thinking, sorry, have you spotted something?
So just to put a little bit of a spanner in the works, the rain has stopped, Sarah. Or as we see Swizzy run very wide going through Blanchamp on Sarah. Maybe a little bit of a brown trousers moment there as he gets all kinds of fishtailing into the bus stop as well.
Yeah, going back to those greasy conditions. It's not fully wet, but it's not fully dry, and I don't think we will have just enough time to see the track go fully dry again, as the Dark Lord getting very sideways again in this battle between himself and LB. But yeah, I think these conditions are worse for drivers. It's not wet, but it's not dry at the same time. It's just very greasy, and being on, the intermediates, they are grippy, but you still can't put a lot of acceleration down coming out of a few corners, so it'll be difficult to make moves stick.
Absolutely. Um, I, I, I mean, even now that we're starting to see definitely a drying line form. With about 5 minutes to go, I don't think it'll be worth coming in and pitting for a dry tire. I think it will just be. I think it should just be intermediate to the end, Sarah.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of drivers will definitely favour track position over kind of fastest lap points or anything like that. As we get down to the wire, we've got about 2, maybe 3 laps in the tank still. So yeah, I think a lot of drivers, it's safer to stay on the intermediates or the wets and go to the end. Secure the position, and the 2 battles that we will probably be seeing will be Callum and McManley, and the Dark Lord and LB Racing. So we've still got some battles on our hands, even in these sort of conditions. But yeah,
I can't help but think maybe the wets weren't the way to go, because obviously Callum took the gamble to go for the wet tire while the rain was at its worst, try and overtake Manley, but that hasn't quite worked for him. Obviously, now that the track's drying out, that wet tire is going to basically start eating itself.
yeah, potentially. Obviously saw the heavy rain incoming, but maybe thought it would last a little bit longer than what it did. We did see quite a downpour, then it did lighten up. So yeah, maybe the wet's not being the optimal tyre. But during that downpour, probably felt a little bit more confident being on the wet compared to the intermediates. But over the long run, the intermediates being that slight bit stronger and can kind of handle both conditions. And like you say, they really come into their own in these sort of conditions where it's greasy, it's wet, it's also dry, and they won't overheat as much as the wet tyres will. So yeah, it might cost Callum towards the end of the race, as we see Swizzy going on to lap 23, 24. And it looks like we've got 3 minutes on the clock, so that might be... He might get around to do another lap, so 2 more laps. That gap to Pedro, 27... Sorry, spotted something?
I'm just going to say the gap between LB Lewis and the Dark Lord is now down to just about a second. And just to interrupt you, Sarah, I do believe the gap is big enough between Swizzy and Pedro that Swizzy could probably choose whether he wants to do an extra lap or not.
It might, you might take a victory lap.
But next lap. Maybe not this lap, but next lap, he could probably choose to park up at the racing line and not do the extra lap.
Or you never know, we might see a Hartman on our hands. Take it in the victory lap. He can cruise. He can take it all in. He can take the win, and just have a parade lap by himself if he really wants to.
Yeah. So heading on to the final few laps with 2 minutes to go. Which should, I assume, this will be the final lap for the likes of Callum, LB Lewis, and the Dark Lord. Can LB Lewis hold on for one more lap from the charging Dark Lord as we run down towards El Rouge and Radion? That gap currently at just about 1.2 seconds. So really, Louis of the Dark Lord is a little bit too far behind at this precise moment to really challenge LB Lewis. As LB Lewis gets all kinds of messed up coming over Radion. That gap is now half a second. Is the Dark Lord going to look to go around, make a move, and right at this precise moment? He gives LB Lewis a little look to the inside to let him know that he's here, but he holds behind for now. But as LB Lewis gets all over the curves, which is something you don't really want to do. All LB Lewis has to do is hold the racing line and make Louis go onto the wetter line to really be able to defend his position effectively. As Louis goes very aggressive there up the inside of LB Lewis into the corner with no real apex, and gets the move done. Although it was maybe just a little bit argy-bargy, Sarah. Oh, as Lord goes wide and lets LB Lewis past again. They are certainly getting their elbows out, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously, maybe carrying a little bit more speed into that corner and going a little bit wider, and letting LB Lewis back through. But yeah, quite an aggressive move by Dark Lord there. We've all raced Louis in the past, and we all know that he likes to make those quite aggressive moves, especially on the last lap when fighting for a position. So it's not uncharacteristic for Louis to go for an optimistic move. But yeah, it looks like unfortunately that corner after just gets a little bit off track, which does lose him a little bit of time to LB Lewis. But he's got a few corners, to try again. But I believe.
Yeah, but this will be their final lap, so heading up towards the line. Can LB Lewis defend in the bus stop? That gap now down to about 3.5 tenths as that gap is closing. It's closing even more. Is the Dark Lord going to go up to the inside? But I think he went too wide going around Blanchmont to really go for the opportunity, Sarah. As he goes deep. He's looking for the cutback. As LB Lewis goes wide, can he get a good run out the final corner? Oh, it gets a little bit squirrely, and so does LB Lewis as they're both trying to run to the line. LB Lewis just holding on to P5 in the end there from the Dark Lord. As we see McManley taking P3 and Callum taking P4. It looks like other than that, everyone else will be finishing in these positions, Sarah.
Yeah, and Swizzy and Pedro getting their own sort of victory lap to themselves. And but yeah, I mean, what a finish. I think if it was dry, Louis might have had the traction compared to LB Lewis in that BMW. Obviously, the GTR having a little bit more traction, a little bit more speed compared to the BMW. As we see Midnight swaying from side to side in that 7th place. But yeah, I think potentially if there was a little bit more traction for that GTR, we would have seen a very close finish between the Dark Lord and LB Racing. But yeah, Louis going very sideways at the finish there, finishing in style, shall we say? But yeah, what a finish between them, and what a battle. Mostly, quite a battle between those two, which has gone across quite a few laps. But LB Racing coming out on top.
As we see Swizzy doing a little bit of victory burnouts over the start finish line.
Yeah, I did miss that, so we'll watch that again.
A very impressive result from Pedro. Obviously qualifying P2 in the mixed conditions qualifying to take P2 in the race. A very impressive drive from the Portuguese driver. As I said earlier on in the race, this is a track that he knows very well and does go very well round. It seems like the last of our runners are just coming over at the finish line now. Coach taking P10, Hartman finishing P8, and then Haslett finishing P11, Sarah.
Yeah, and as we join everyone that's finished the race, and Cady the Kai looks like he's waiting for that timer to run down. Unfortunately, just parked up by the start-finish straight. But yeah, what a race from everyone across the grid. I mean, I'm especially proud of Pedro. Getting a P2 finish after a couple of disconnects last week. I'm sure that's right. What he wanted from this week, coming into this week on the back foot, not picking up many points from last week to secure himself a P2 finish. He should be very proud of himself for that.
Absolutely. A very impressive drive from him tonight. I don't think he could have done much better if he tried. I mean, you got to see the same to LB Lewis as well. Drove a very impressive race. Obviously qualified P5, finished P5, just managed to hold off from the Dark Lord in the end. I think one more lap and Louis, the Dark Lord, will probably have got past LB Lewis, Sarah.
Yeah, I think you're right there, because obviously we saw how close they were coming out of the bus stop. So if they had one more lap, we would have probably seen it go right down to the wire, and that finish be even closer. But before we get into the podium room and the interviews, if you'd like to run down the finishing order for tonight for me.
Absolutely. what can only be summed up as a completely dominant display from Swizzy. Kept it very clean and very changeable conditions to take the victory tonight. Yeah, what can I say from the promise that we haven't said in the race? Um, as I said in the driver intro, an absolutely insane drive from an absolutely insane driver. There was no catches, was they absolutely perfect. And that's not to take anything away from P2 Pedro. Stuck it right up there in the mixed conditions qualifying to be in optimum position to have a very good race, to which he did. Obviously, kept it clean and kept it out of trouble. That really helped him secure P2 and a position on the podium tonight, Sarah. Then following that, we have Manley in P3. Obviously, on the intermediate tire, managing to hold off Callum on the wet tire when the track was at its wettest, and as it dried out, really only pressed his advantage even more. Obviously, P4 Callum. Obviously, maybe a little bit disappointed not to finish on the podium, but he made the gamble of going onto the wet when the rain come back, and that obviously wasn't the right way to go. But obviously, hindsight is 2020. Very good round from LB Lewis, finishing P5. Obviously, qualified P5 and held his position in the race, only just compared to the Dark Lord in P, taking up P6. Only a few tenths behind LB Lewis. I'm sure one more lap, and he probably would have got past. Seventh place being Midnight ISO. Obviously, we saw Midnight ISO pick some damage up early on in the race. Obviously, doing a little pirouette as well, dropping him down towards the back of the pack and finishing P7. Hartman is certainly done well. Obviously, we saw him run almost 3 minutes off the leader at one point. To bring it back to P8 is certainly nothing to be disappointed with. P9, we have the first of our promoted drivers for this round. We have Rupinder Terin. One of the three drivers, well, our three last finishing drivers, P9, Rupinder Terin, P9 coach in P10, and Haslett in 11, all got caught out a little bit when that rain come back in, all being a bit too slow to react to the rain and all being on the sort of the slick tires when that rain come in, and obviously that kind of ruined their race from there, Sarah. And then last person ran out the grid, Kaylee Kai, and who did officially take the fastest lap, but I'm not 100% sure if you'll get the point for the fastest lap just because of how he parked up in the pits. But other than that, it was a fantastic round from everyone who was very, very fantastic drivers, Sarah.
Yeah, I've got to say across the board, proud of everyone. Everyone did a phenomenal job as always, and what was in very, very difficult conditions. I think everyone should be proud of themselves, especially because it was entertaining. We had quite a few battles, even in tricky conditions, and especially that first stint, where all the drivers were really close to each other. I was very, very impressed. But before we jump into the podium room, we'll just have a little bit of a look of the championship standings going into tonight's round. Obviously, this will change quite drastically going into next round. But as you can see, across the board, we've got quite a few drivers in what will be gearing up for some championship battles going into the final round. And here is page 2.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting. I do believe, barring a disconnect from Callum should probably be our champion for season 2. Obviously, a little bit too early to say yet because it's still mathematically possible. Obviously, Dark Lord winning the sprint race, getting them extra points from Callum in the sprint race, but obviously finishing a few positions behind Callum in the feature race. It's certainly interesting to see what the gap is after this round, but I think if I was a betting man, I'd probably be betting on Callum to be winning this championship. It'd be interesting and I believe the likes of McManley should have possibly got P3 secured as well. As obviously Katie Kai not scoring points this round possibly could also put Katie Kai in the clutches from the likes of fifth, sixth, and seventh place drivers, or almost certainly as Swizzy winning the feature race tonight and obviously finishing second in the sprint race should certainly see him climb a few positions, Sarah.
100%. I think Swizzy will definitely be making a few positions up after what was a phenomenal performance from him again tonight around Spa. But before we get into the podium room, we'll have a look at the calendar. As we've got one more race, our final race of the season, and we are off to Le Mans. Obviously, not 24 hours of Le Mans, but about an hour of Le Mans. I think we're capable of. But yeah, that is race number 8, which will be next week, and the final round of season 2. It's the final round has come around very quickly, and I'm sure we're looking forward to the last race. People securing those championship titles, and maybe potentially might see a few more drivers on the podium for our last sprint and feature race. But should we go and say hello to some of the drivers that finished on the podium tonight, Kirk?
Yeah, absolutely. I've certainly got a lot of questions I want to ask him because that was a mental race. I want to hear what it's like from their perspective.
Cool, let's go over. Let's go and say hello. But yes, looking forward to Le Mans next week. But we'll jump in the podium room. We will let's bring in McManley first. If he, there we go. If McManley can hear us, hopefully he can.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing? How was your race?
Race, start was not happy. End very happy.
A man of a few words, but yeah, no, we thought you did really well, and I won't keep you too long because I know Kirk is gearing up to ask you a few questions. So Kirk, take it away. Have we lost Kirk?
Kirk is disappeared. Oh no.
He's back. But while we wait for Kirk, yeah, talk to us about which one did you prefer? Did you prefer the sprint or the feature race tonight?
Honestly, I prefer the feature because in the sprint I was annoyed because I thought I could have won, and then my TV turned off in the middle of the race, so like that was cool and all. Um, but then in the endurance, it was my own problems that I caused for myself, but I managed to regain the positions. Luckily, I had enough time that time, unlike the sprint. But no, it was definitely the endurance was my favorite one. Now, I'm not a big fan of the rain. The AMG felt very shy in the full wet, but as soon as it got to more like inter conditions, it kind of came alive. So I was just kind of waiting it out all the time for it to get to that condition, and then that was kind of fine.
You're obviously picking up 2 third place finishes as well. We'll get you a lot of points. Obviously, potentially maybe securing that P3 in the championship, if not getting very close to P2. But yeah, obviously 2 very different weather conditions from the sprint and the feature. How did you deal with those the difficult conditions that presented themselves in the feature race?
I mean, obviously with qualifying, it's a representative of the first 15 minutes in endurance, so I kind of knew what was happening then. Um, for the first 15 minutes, or sorry, 10 minutes, sorry. And we knew it was going to be heavy wet, so I was going to dry up pretty quickly. So I started on the inters, and that was fine. Kind of dried up, and I stayed on the inters for like I think I was the longest person to stay on the inters. And I kind of pitted very late for softs and managed to get myself stuck sideways in the pits. But that's don't watch that back, please. Um, and then yeah, I pitted for the softs, went off and crashed into the wall like twice in a row, and then I just had to get back past midnight and leave. But I think it could have been a lot better of a race. I think I actually could have maybe gotten up challenging with Pedro and Swizzy if I didn't make like 27 mistakes in the race. But at least I was able to repair it in the end. But the weather conditions were debatable at times on whether they were drivable or not. For most people, people were doing different tires, and it was very confusing.
Yeah, talking about different tires, I had a quick look in the chat, and obviously you spotted that Callum behind you was catching you in that second set of wet weather. How did you feel? The pressure of Callum breathing down your neck.
It wasn't nice. I honestly, I don't know. I kind of did. I wasn't looking at what tires people were going on to because I assumed everyone went on to inters. So I don't. I thought at the time when it got to inter conditions that it was just the McLaren wasn't good in the inter conditions, but it turns out he's on the full wets. So I think if I knew that he was on full wets at the time, I would have been a lot less scared. But I thought he was on inters, and I was like, "Damn, this guy's." Catching me in the heavy wets on inters. This is not good, and he probably will catch me when it goes to inters as well. But luckily, he was on a full wet, so as soon as it got like any bit less like wet on the track, you kind of um I managed to get a bit of a gap. But no, Callum was definitely he was definitely up there. He was I'd say he definitely could have caught me if he went on the inters.
Yeah, and obviously you looked. Although you said you made a few mistakes, you did look very confident. On the wet tire, well, the intermediate tires in the wet conditions. Sorry, but yeah, who did you feel was kind of your closest competitor during the race?
I'd say well, in this, it's different for the sprint and the endurance. I think for the sprint, Dark Lord and Swizzy, and then the endurance, it was kind of Swizzy. Like, I mean, I wasn't racing Swizzy directly on the track in the endurance, but he was kind of the guy I was matching my pace to. So, and now obviously he was like 40 seconds up the road, but I was hoping that maybe they went on to a different tire or something like Callum did, or they went on to the heavy wets, but they didn't. So, that was kind of who I was battling. As I said in the sprint, it was a case of my telly turned off, so I had to cede uh, for like first, well, basically first position to Swizzy and Dark Lord. So I was kind of annoyed about that, but yeah, I mean, Swizzy was my main rival today, even though I wasn't with him on the track most of the time. He was the guy I was trying to catch.
I mean, it looked like, if that sprint race was even a minute longer, it looked like you were going to catch him. We saw how close that finish was in the sprint race, and we were rooting for you, to get that last corner overtake. But it looked like quite a close finish between you two.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think. Yeah, it was. I got a penalty on like the second last lap. I think if I didn't get that, I might have been able to at least get maybe second. But yeah, it was quite close. It was a case of all of us were stronger in different sectors. I think I was quite strong for most of the time in the like last sector, and I think the other two were like the second and first sector. So that I think that's why we saw such a gap, like the gap decreased so much by that final lap was because I managed to gain a bit of time on them into the like final corners. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see the different lines everyone was taking because people were going wide and all sorts of different ways to avoid the water. And it was a bit off-putting sometimes, especially in the endurance because there was just people going all over the track, to be honest.
Yeah, a true race around Spa. I think that describes it all. Everyone going everywhere. But we'll double check. Kirk, are you back, or have you got any questions for Mac?
Hello, I believe I should be back.
You are back. We can hear
Yeah.
you loud and clear.
That's good to hear. Congratulations, Mark, on the P3 finishing the race. We saw some moments where some drivers are quite aggressive. What was it like from your perspective?
Uh, I don't really know because I mean I do want to say right now, I'm very sorry to I think LB or Lee or Lewis because it seemed every single time there was any moment it was with him. In qualifying, I think there was a bit of contact between us, and now I don't know what the stewards will think of it because I'll probably end up saying that he was blocking me, and then he would probably end up saying that I just ended up crashing into him for no reason. But yeah, then in the endurance as well, it was just all over the place. As I said, people trying to take different lines and trying to get prioritize corner entrance and corner exit, and it was just a case of there was people moving under braking, trying to get better lines, and you just had to be really careful trying to predict that. But at the same time, there was people braking like 200 meters before they were supposed to, and it was like so hard because there would be people that would get a slingshot on you off like the start finish straight, and then you'd have to brake like 200 meters earlier for the people in front of you, and then they just like brake way later and just take the outside line. So it was like a big train until eventually got a bit broken up when the dry conditions came and everybody started pitting. Which that was luckily because I was not having a good time in that train, filtering back positions and stuff. So yeah.
And what would you say was the hardest part of the race from your perspective? Was it wet going to dry, or was it when the track got wet again towards the end of the race?
Oh, I think the hardest part of it was actually going from when I first went out on the slicks on the dry track because it was dry, and in the first two corners, actual two braking zones I met, I touched the white line immediately and spun myself around. So that was the hardest for me. I think the AMG was quite good in the kind of transition phase between like inters and dries. It felt quite good. I managed to stay out on the inters, I think, longer than anybody else. But then when it came to like the soft tires, it wasn't the car. It was more just me accidentally thinking I was on the inters and that I could just push that extra bit, and then I touch a bit of water and the car was spinning around. That was the most difficult part for me, to be honest.
And do you think, given the circumstances, you could have done any better than P3 today? Possibly challenge Pedro or Swizzy? Or do you think P3 was probably the best you could have managed?
No, absolutely. As I said, I made a few mistakes, and as I said, I got stuck horizontally in the pit lane, along other things. So I definitely, if I didn't make that many mistakes, like I definitely would have been up further to the front, I'd say. I think I had one less pit stop than everybody else, so I did gain a bit of time because of that. So if I just managed to actually keep it on the track, I think that would have been pretty good.
And just one last question for you. Obviously, heading into the season finale at Le Mans, would you want would you want more rain again, or would you hope for it to be dry? And where do you think you could finish in both races?
I mean, I'll be honest, I've been on a pretty okay streak the last few races. I managed to actually not bottle it. Well, I have bottled it, but like I've managed to get up kind of second, third. So really, I'd be looking at a position that helps me set up to get P2 in the championship. But I'd say I'm not a fan of the track limits at Le Mans. I think that's going to be a massive factor. So I'd say, you know, depending on that, I could be anywhere from maybe podium positions to maybe sixth or fifth. But I don't think I'll be challenged for a win. I'm not the biggest fan of Le Mans in the GR3 cars. I quite like it in the vintage cars, just not GR3 really, to be honest.
No worries. Thank you for your time tonight, Mac. Congratulations on the P3 in the feature race. I'm sure you'll get at least one podium.
All right, thanks very much. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your time as well, and hopefully, see you back next week on the podium.
Yeah, thank you.
That's right, and I can see Pedro's waiting in the podium room, so we'll bring him in as well. Hello, Pedro. Are you able to talk? Are you ready to talk? And if there is anybody else out there, that especially, Dark Lord or Swizzy, that wants to come and have a little chat with us about their podium, feel free to join the podium waiting room as well. And that goes to any other driver as well across Lobby 1. If they want to pop in, have a little chat, feel free. But currently waiting for Pedro when he's available to chat. We'll have a little chat with Pedro. But yeah, like Max saying, obviously the most difficult conditions for him was that wet to dry, going on the slicks. Taking that first step on the slick tyres is quite tricky. But Have we got Pedro yet?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was
That's
just
alright.
talking to Midnight and Bertie.
That's right. Yeah, how was the race? How was both the races from your perspective?
It feels like a huge relief finally being on the podium this season.
Been a long time
Definitely,
coming.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know, like, I'm obviously just very happy with the results I got. I don't think I could have got much more than this, really. Uh, a few mistakes here and there that I kind of need to iron out, but apart from that, obviously there was only a small incident for me in the sprint, which I'm possibly going to have to report, but I don't think I would have been able to get anything better than the P4 I did. And as for the feature, that was one of the most stressful and most difficult races I've done in a long time. um, and yeah, I actually risked a little bit with the strategy, and it kind of paid off at the end. So quite happy with that.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it paid off. You know, P2 and a P4, well, a P4 and a P2 finish. And I was
Yeah.
just saying on stream as well. Definitely, you know, the result you wanted after last week, after unfortunate disconnects. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
back better than ever. You know, getting on the podium, which, like I said, I'm sure you were ecstatic about, and you know,
Yeah.
hearing that you are, but. I think Kurt's got a few questions if he's ready to ask them about the race, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we saw early on in the feature race, you and Swizzy breaking away at the front of the pack. You think you could have challenged Swizzy today at any point, or do you think he was just too fast?
I mean, seeing what happened afterwards, at the beginning I was kind of keeping up with his pace somewhat, but especially seeing what happened afterwards, like there was no way of catching him. He was like, as always, just his pace was mega, and I don't think I could have done anything else. Even with the strategy gamble I did with pitting for the mediums during the dry period of the race, just hoping to go long and try to get to the next rain period. Like, I just couldn't do it, especially because of, I was lacking a lot of confidence in the wet to dry phase. I just didn't really want to push my luck too much, just to avoid hitting any wet parts of the track. Um, but even then, he was consistently, like in that phase, just 3 seconds quicker than me. So there was no way that myself or anyone else could have catched him today.
Yeah. You alluded to an incident that you had. Do you want to expose it anymore, or do you just want to leave it as just a incident that has happened?
I'm not sure if it's a really big deal, but it's definitely something that at the moment kind of made me lose a lot of positions because of it. Which I don't know. I was just kind of killed my momentum at that point. But seeing what happened afterwards, like as I said before, like I don't think I could have caught any of the podium finishers for the sprint. Just a little bit of a moment going side by side with LB. But yeah, it wasn't too big of a deal. I think he should have probably left me a little bit more space at the exit of a corner, but yeah, not really too big of a deal. You know, these things happen when you're just going side by side racing, and
I think I, I
things
think
happen.
we also saw you with the Dark Lord in the feature race go side by side a little bit and get a bit and get your elbows out a little bit. Was that like from where you were?
Yeah, it was definitely good to be able to fight with Louis. I must say, obviously, just feel a bit bad for what had happened to him. I think he might have had some sort of an off moment or a crash, but it was really entertaining, and I definitely I could feel the pressure just fighting him in the wet part of the race at the start, but then I managed to break away and left me a lot more relieved at that point.
Yeah,
But
no
yeah,
worries.
that's all.
And then looking forward to next week to Le Mans, do you want some more rain to turn up to possibly some Pedro magic into the race for you?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling a bit. Well, at least today, I'm not sure how it's going to be like at Le Mans, but I was feeling. I wouldn't say that I was extremely confident, but I was quite confident with how the car was behaving in the wet. So might be a good thing. It's another track that I like, so it adds to the excitement factor, and yeah, hopefully I can get a good finish in the races there, so that I can just get a little bit more points for the championship and hopefully finish in a good position. And yeah, just to finish off, I think for like today, I definitely I was quite happy as well to get some good points for the qualifying position, even though the lap wasn't necessarily perfect and I could have done a bit better, but quite happy with that factor as well. And I think a lot of stuff went right this time, and yeah, definitely needed a round like this, especially after what happened last week. Very much looking forward to Le Mans.
No worries. Thank you for your time, Pedro. Congratulations on P2, and I'm sure we could possibly, if we get some weather next week, there's no reason why we couldn't see you on the podium again next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That's all right, and just check that. Thank you for your time as well, and thank you for doing the tutorial and the hot lap video this week. It came very handy for quite a few drivers, and it just goes to show that you were super fast. And like Kirk said, maybe with the wet weather next week, we might see you on the podium again. But massive congratulations on P2, and go enjoy the podium.
Yeah, will do. Thank you very much, guys.
That's all right. I can see that Dark Lord is waiting in the podium waiting room as well, so we'll bring him in. We'll have a quick word with Louis, aka the Dark Lord. How are you this evening?
Yeah, so. After that.
Did look quite difficult that, but a sprint race victory. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, it's my first win of the season. At least I've got one, which is something I suppose. But yeah, it was the sprint race went quite well, but yeah, the feature race was a completely different story, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like to, please talk to us a little bit more about the feature race. Obviously, a tale of two halves. The sprint race, a win, and the feature race, like you said, maybe a little bit more difficult in those tricky conditions.
Yeah, the sprint race went quite well. Managed to sort of work my way through towards the front quite quickly, and then it was just a case of trying to hold Swizzy and Mac behind me, which was hard work, but yeah, managed it just about to take a good win. And then the feature race for qualifying went well, reasonably well. I think I qualified third, and then so the start was so not too bad, but I think Pedro with that Porsche, I think with the drive with the rear engine on the traction on it was too good for it out of the corners with me, and I just couldn't get the traction down to start with at the start of the race. So we had a good little battle for a couple of laps, and then he got away. And I can't really remember exactly what happened after that. I know I crashed about 3 times and everything else, but I was half tempted to put it in the pits and just leave it there. But I thought for the championship, I need to try and get some points out of it. So I think a P6 in the end after spinning 3 times and getting engine damage and everything else wasn't too bad in the end.
Yeah, not too bad, and all helps going into the final round as well. But a massive congratulations on your sprint race victory as well. And I'm sure it was a lot of pressure, having 2 fast drivers breathing down your neck. But I'll pass you over to Kirk, who I'm sure has got quite a few questions for you.
Cool.
Obviously, winning the sprint race today or tonight, where did it all go right for you in the sprint race, Louis?
I don't know. I think I just managed. I think a lot of people made a few mistakes. I think, which helped me sort of work my way through towards the front. And And I had decent enough pace. I think Swizzy was a little bit quicker than me, but obviously I managed to defend and sort of stay just about in front, far enough on a couple of straights on the last couple of laps, so that he couldn't get past. So yeah, it worked out sort of pretty well. I think everything just sort of fell into place. So yeah, that's sort of how it went really in the sprint race. But yeah, feature race not quite so well, unfortunately.
In the feature race, I know early on where you and Pedro your elbows out a little bit into the comms and Normandy and that. What was it like from your perspective?
Yeah, I was really struggling with getting the traction down out of the corners in the first sort of couple of laps. Really struggled with the intermediates in the sort of the heavy rain. And I think, like I said, Pedro with that Porsche, I think with the traction with the rear engine on it, was just that much quicker, sort of coming out of the corners. So I was trying to defend as well as I could and managed to do it for a couple of laps, I think, and then he just got away and that was it. And I was trying to I think I then started to catch him a bit. Towards sort of the end of the first stint before we put the dry tyres on. And I think he then was sort of going quite slow. So I was trying to get past him because I felt like he was kind of sort of holding me up a little bit. And then I made a mistake. And I think I sort of bumped into him. And then I tried to sort of let him go back past. And I think he thought he was waiting for me and I was waiting for him. We kind of just sat next to each other, not really doing much for about 2 or 3 corners, just kind of trying to let each other go. So I think that sort of cost us both a bit of time. And then I spun coming out of the pits because I forgot about, obviously, it being wet coming out of the pits. So I spun straight away on the dry tyres. And then I think I spun again. And then I sort of went off. I can't remember what the corner was, the fast left one. Anyway, I caught the curb and it just went straight on and then into the wall. And I got engine damage. So I had to take it back to the pits and repair all that. And I was just going to leave it there, but I thought I need some points for the championship. So I sort of came back out and gave it a go. And yeah, P6 is not terrible in the end, I suppose, from what happened in the race. So I shall take it.
Obviously, and barring any said mistakes, did you think you could possibly have challenged the podium today? Do you think they would have been too quick for you?
I think I could have been up there. I think I had decent pace today. I have no idea how much time I lost from spinning and everything else. Probably a good, I don't know, 25, 30 seconds probably of time, I'd imagine. So, I mean, I could see sort of Mac not too far, not Mac, Callum, sorry, sort of not too far in front of me and LB at the end. So I think I could have got another couple of positions and probably would have been up near the sort of top 3, but I don't know. But yeah, but without them, I don't know now. Without those mistakes, who knows? I could have been anywhere. But it is what it is, and I knew it was going to be a difficult race anyway. So I shall just take what I got and get on to the last race and see what happens there. Hopefully, no rain.
And finally, heading into Le Mans, the final race of the season. What really do you want to happen? What results do you want to achieve? And would you, well, you say hopefully no rain, but do you want some rain to possibly spice up the race a little bit?
No, I don't know. I don't want any rain. I don't want to see rain ever again, to be perfectly honest with you, in these races. So, no, dry races will do me absolutely fine. So, I don't know what sort of the point standings are between me and, I think, obviously, Callum's obviously pretty much won the championship, I think. So, I think it's between me and Mac are battling out for second place, I think, pretty much. So, I'm not sure what the gap is. I think he's probably taken 4 or 5 points out of me in these races. So, I think there's probably about 10 points between us. So, I just need to sort of get close to where he is, hopefully. So, yeah, hopefully, I'm aiming for second in the championship. That's the aim. So, but we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Congratulations tonight on the sprint race win. I'm sure we'll be talking to you next week, Louis, because you're certainly quick enough to be up there, mate.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'll try my best anyway. Let's see what happens.
And Midnight says, get out the champagne, and he just said, Louis, just for you, we'll make Le Mans wet. Hashtag kidding.
Hey, you tell Midnight he's not my friend anymore. That's it. I ain't speaking to him ever again. He's an evil man. He is.
I'll pass the message on. But thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the sprint race victory. And like Kirk said, you're super fast, so I'm sure we'll see you on the podium again next week.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. If not, I'll speak to you anyway, regardless.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to talking to you next week, and enjoy the practice for Le Mans.
Yeah, will do. Thanks very much.
That's all right. And our final podium room chatter of the evening will bring in the main man himself, Swizzy. How do you feel? How did the races go?
Decent. Was fun.
Yeah, it looked
And
like that feature race was a brilliant showing. You know, you at one point I think you were 45 seconds in front of Pedro.
yeah, I mean, you know, when it's wet, like the gaps and whatever, like you have no idea what's happening and who's pitting and who's on what tires. So I just tried to focus, keep on my own car on the track. Quite tricky. I do like the rain, but like I think I was drifting the whole race when it was wet. Horrible car to drive on wet, but the dry pace was very good.
Yeah, it did look like you were drifting, but I think it definitely adds for some performance points. It did look very cool drifting through some of those corners. But yeah, massive congratulations on P2 and a win tonight. But I'm sure you know Kirk has been waiting to ask you a few questions, so I won't make him wait too much longer.
Yep.
Right. We saw you finish P2 in the sprint race, Swizzy. Do you think you could have one more lap? Do you think you probably could have got Louis in the end, or do you think Mac would have got you at the end?
The thing is that if there was like 1 lap, 3 lap, 10 laps more, I would have just dropped more positions because my tires were like 1 lap from like fully dead. So I had like one very good chance to overtake Louis, and the second attempt was quite desperate, but I still tried. So no, like if I would have done the overtake when I first tried it, you know, who knows what's gonna happen on the rest of the race, but that was my chance to win, and it was just a lack of like straight line speed compared to GTR, because I couldn't keep 5th gear in slip if I was like very close, and I never had like the inside line, and that was basically the only place to try to even overtake, because he didn't do any mistakes, or like if he did, but not big enough. So I'm quite happy with P2. Like it's never easy to come through the pack, and I think like Luis said, like many people did mistakes or whatever, crashes happened, so we got like quite a lot free positions. So I'm more than fine with P2.
And then obviously going into qualifying, you qualified on pole by 8 tenths from Pedro in the end. When you, was there any? Did you think at any point that, oh no, I haven't got pole here, or do you think you had it quite secured all along?
To be honest, I had no idea what's gonna happen on qualifying. I knew that I should be quite strong on wet, especially on my favorite track, but the thing is, like those MR cars, like nothing away from all the drivers, but like the traction is like much better, so I just tried to wait until the full wet conditions were like going off, and put on intermediates, and I tried to time the last lap like as close as I could get, and it was decent lap for sure, but you can't really know what's gonna happen on rain qualifying. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
One more thing about qualifying. Obviously, towards the end of qualifying, we saw it get very dry. I think qualifying it could have been dry for slicks if someone was brave enough, or do you think it was just too damp in the end for slicks?
I actually thought about it. I was looking the timer, but the problem was that I think on that point I I still didn't have any time on board, so it was like too risky to do it because like you do one little mistakes and you're like out of top 10 basically. So I was watching what others gonna do. I didn't see any slick tires, so I just stick to my intermediates.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that. And then obviously in the sprint race, we saw for the first few laps, obviously a few minor mistakes from you in the first few laps. Obviously Pedro, when you're under a little bit of pressure at the start there, but once you found your groove, there was no stopping you. Did you ever really feel under pressure in that race at all?
No, but it wasn't about like what pace others gonna do or are doing. It was more like I literally tried to focus just to keep my car on track, and like the gaps were like I was pulling away from the group, then they were like catching me, and like I was like, what's happening here? And you know, like those conditions, it's you really don't know what's happening, what's gonna happen, and Petro was definitely fast today, and maybe he said that he lacked some confidence or whatever. But it's still the best race he's ever done, at least what I've seen. So big congratulations to him, and of course also to McManley. Like, yeah, we didn't battle today. Like, yeah, he was very close to me on sprint, but like he needed that one extra lap, and like even though after the win and like 30 seconds or more, like you know, it's like who's gonna survive, and I think well, I didn't see what happened to people, but big congratulations to everyone that somewhat survived. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Petro.
Yeah, well, obviously we know Pedro didn't do a very good race today in P2. Then finally heading on to next week at Le Mans. Would you like to see any more rain? And what would your goals for Le Mans be? Obviously, final race of the season.
Yeah, definitely I want to see some rain, because otherwise there's gonna be no chance to probably even get podium. It's like 90-80% about the car top speed, and Lexus is not having it, so I can't really do anything. There is like couple breaking points, like I can't gain all the time back on those corners compared to the straight line, so I don't know. It needs to be like 60 minutes of wet race to have a chance, but I still don't know if I can even make it, so let's see.
No worries. Thank you for your time tonight, Swizzy. As I said, you're a fantastic driver who drove an absolutely fantastic feature race. I take my hat off to you. As I say, it was probably one of the best drives I've seen all season. Very well done tonight, mate, and I look forward to interviewing you next week when you're surely on the podium again for the season finale.
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the commentator things. I will watch it back probably tonight or tomorrow. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your time as always, and hopefully we'll see you on the grid next week. If not, we'll chat to you another time. But thank you so much so far for providing some really good races throughout the season, and we look forward to chatting to you when we can.
Yep. See you.
But yeah, Kirk, that rounds out off all of the podium room drivers' interviews. And before we end the stream, what did you think of the race? What did you think of the two races that we treated to tonight?
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic race tonight. I said I probably couldn't sum Swizzy up well enough at how absolutely out of this world he was. Obviously, showing everyone why he is the season one champion. I heading into next season, I definitely would like to see a bit more rain because there was absolute carnage everywhere I looked. There was always one or two people either battling, losing and battling, or just unfortunately some people having incidents. Going into Le Mans, I definitely would like to see a little bit of rain because it always spices up the race. Um, and yeah, other than that, fantastic race. Um, Fantastic drives. We see multiple people drive very well tonight, and I say bring on the season finale next week. I'm sure it will be just as crazy as it was this week.
Yeah, I can't echo those words more. I'm looking forward to the season finale. And yeah, I mean, the rain, although unpredictable at times, it provided some good racing and some good strategies as well. And look, I'm excited for, to watch Lobby 2. I think it was a completely different story in the other lobby. So I'm excited to see how all the drivers got on. But yeah, I mean, in Lobby 1, I thoroughly enjoyed the race, and like you say, I think that everyone should be proud of themselves for driving in such difficult conditions. And hopefully, even if we don't see, the amount of rain we saw today, hopefully see a little bit of rain in Le Mans. And like I say, it might spice things up into our season finale. But I mean, what a season it's been so far. I'm excited to see, where everyone ends up in those driver championship positions. But yeah, just a massive shout out to all the drivers tonight. A massive well done. Proud of you all. And we will end tonight's stream. We'll look forward to Le Mans. But anything else you want to say, Kirk, before we end the stream?
Not really. I haven't really got anything more to say. But then well done to everyone, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how well everybody drives next week.
Yeah, we will leave you with the highlights for a few minutes. And other than that, it's good night from me and good night from Kirk. And we'll see you next week around Le Mans.